Howdy. They laughed at me when I started investing. They laughed at me when I started YouTube. They're going to laugh at you too when you start investing, when you start focusing on money, when you do the things that are required to have a better financial future. They're going to laugh at you. And if you're not ready for it, you might have a knee-jerk reaction. I had a couple of those. The reason I want to make this video is to help you understand the average individual can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and make work completely optional, even if you're not starting from the best position. But you're going to get laughed at. When I started investing, I didn't get encouragement. That's what people expect. They expect, I'm going to be encouraged. No, you get laughed at. From friends, from coworkers, from family, not strangers online. The people who knew me, right? When people know you, they have to see a changed you for you to change. When people meet you online, they see the person you're trying to be because that's who you put forward. That's what's funny. Everything they laughed at, exactly what made me it is exactly what made me financially free. And I'm not saying they want to be me now. Nobody actually wants to be this. But all of the people who laughed at me want the financial freedom lifestyle. They want 3 months in Thailand just because you feel like it and not sure where you're going when you get home or what state you're going to move to. Never thinking of a Monday is any different than a Sunday because time doesn't matter. Because when you don't have enough, money's the only thing. So you sell your life for it 1 hour at a time. And once you have enough, it's just a thing. Like any other thing, you use balance. So here are some of the top things that they laughed at me for that you might need to be ready for them to laugh at you about. You might not even use all of my strategies, or you might use different ones. But somebody will criticize you, and it won't be successful, people. I don't know if it's the crab in a bucket mentality or jealousy or doubt, their own fear. But the first thing that I got laughed at a bunch because I didn't start saving to invest until around 2011. I had been laid off from law enforcement because during the 2008 housing crash, there's no more crime, so we don't need cops anymore. And I started teaching at a CDL school making $17 an hour. My friends all knew this. They saw me go from a police officer to a CDL trainer, entry level. I could have went and made more money driving a truck, but I also found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce, and I was raising 3 kids. So for my friends to see this person who had really bad debt, not a lot of income, and raising 3 kids start saving to buy a place, this is the thing I heard the most. Don't you remember 2008? What caused the recession? It was a housing crash. Why would you buy an asset that can go down that much in value? Over and over and over. And in the beginning, it got to me. I expected a crash. I thought, yeah, they're right. It took me a couple of years to save the first down payment. So it was around 2013. And I'm buying the first duplex. And they said, home prices are above where they were in 2008. Why are you buying? It has to crash. I believed them in the beginning because I thought, it's too expensive. People can't afford this. But I'm moving into a duplex. I'm paying $1,500 a month to live in this apartment. I want to pay about $300 a month to live in this duplex. Come at me, bro. I believe them. Let me set a goal to give away a free Audible book away. Last week was one by That Flipping Nurse. (2008), now that I look back, was caused by 51% adjustable rates. Ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. Tell the bank what you thought you felt like you needed to make to qualify. 105% loan to value, so you can wrap the closing costs into the loan. And now we have super strict lending. For a while, you were capped at 4 conventional loans in your name. Now it's up to 10. Adjustable rates they were down to 3% for a while. Now they're still around 10 or 11, but they're not 51%. People have equity. So now I go, okay, yeah, so there's probably not a crash coming, and there definitely wasn't one in 2013, 15, 18, 2020, 2021, 2023, all the years I was buying properties. But they laughed at me. You're saving to buy a property that could lose value in the future. You could owe money on a property that loses value in the future. Who cares about the value? I cared about the rents. And since we started tracking rents in 1940, they've never gone down over a 5-year period and stayed down. So as long as you plan on holding for a few years, you'll be fine. That's my mentality now. The second thing that I got laughed at a lot was that move. The one before the duplex, when I had the bad debt to income ratio, you can't buy a rental when you have that, and the low income. I actually kept the house in the divorce, right? Really good at keeping custody of kids. The house, never good at keeping a spouse around. There's a lesson there. I'm the problem. I moved from our house on a lake with a nice view in a good neighborhood into an apartment. Imagine how much I got laughed at for that. I had people telling me, you went from a house into an apartment. You're working at the CDL school. It only took me a couple of years there to become a manager, right? I went all the way up to $19 an hour at 2 years. Ooh, that's tons of money. It was 8 years before I broke $60,000 a year. And that year was $61,000 working at that school. So those first few years weren't a lot of money. But with strategy, I was able to create more money than my job did. The apartment manager laughed at me, not out loud, but with her words. You have to kind of say where you're moving from, prove your work history. When they say, we need proof of your rent payments where you're at, I say, no, I own my house. And they look at you and they go, you own a house on Lake Lawrence in Yelm, Washington? And you're moving to Spanaway, Parkland area, where the cops usually don't go alone? Yeah, I'm doing this so I can rent my house out for a couple of years. The apartment manager almost didn't believe that somebody was going to move from my lake house into their apartment complex and then continue to pay rent. They thought this was some scam or something, and it took me convincing them that I had a plan. My friends and coworkers and family saw it as a downgrade. The apartment manager saw it as a downgrade. My son thought, we're moving from a lake house into an apartment complex where all the girls live. And my daughters thought, we're moving to a place where we get to be the new girls. So my kids were excited. I had a plan, but I got laughed at because people saw a downgrade. And I saw a house that started paying me. And I saw a way around bad debt to income ratio that didn't require a bankruptcy because I wasn't sure if I was going to go back into law enforcement or not. It didn't require 10 or 20 years to fix my credit. I had to get my debt to income ratio fixed. The third thing that I got laughed at, so I get laughed at for living in an apartment, for renting out the house, for starting to save, for buying an asset class that could lose value. But I really got laughed at for house hacking. Like I said, in a couple of years, I had been demoted to a management position. I was lead instructor. I hadn't really done office work yet because there was a guy working in the office that was doing good. And I didn't want to work in an office. I love being in a truck. You to take 105,500 pounds on a freeway with somebody who's never seen a clutch before in their life. That's fun. An office desk is borderline taste the bullet mentality to me. It took them a while to get me convinced to go in there. And even that, I only went when it was part-time. But as a manager, I had instructors who owned their houses. And I was buying a duplex. I was going to live in a house that had tenants next door. I got laughed at. The employees had better assets than me. You shouldn't live like that. What everyone else thought is they would be embarrassed. And what I thought is this is almost free housing. Tenants are paying my mortgage. I live cheap and invested heavy. I had scale, to me, super fast. I saw a better financial future in a decade or less. But all of those people laughing at me, those friends and coworkers, they were still only more than 40 hours a week for more than 40 years to retire on less than 40% of what you made. That's not the path I wanted. I didn't start out with the intent of financial freedom. My book, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, available on Audible and Amazon, I talk about my first goal was I just wanted to not be a financial burden to my kids if I became so old I couldn't work anymore. Right? A lot of my income was tied to my CDL, and eventually you can't get a med card anymore. Apparently you need to speak English, but that could go away. And I have so many friends my age, I'm a Gen Xer, and their parents are on their cell phone plan, their car insurance plan. They're basically subsidizing their parents' life because their parents didn't make decisions to have a better financial future. So my goal was buy a few rentals right out of the one rental at a time playbook. If he says get to 4, then decide if you want more, but those 4 can have a huge impact when you retire. I got to 18 rental units on 8 properties, and it creates over a couple $100,000 pure cash flow after taxes, after expenses, after future expenses. So yeah, it wasn't just 4, but that financial freedom where I get to go where I want. In Thailand, I'm planning the Mallorca trip. I'm planning a wedding visit for somebody who's getting married in April. I am planning maybe go home, maybe move to another state. Who knows? That's what financial freedom gives you, is those options. The things that people laughed at me about give me the options they wish they had now. So the thumbnail is a little, misleading. Nobody's wishing to be me, but none of my friends and family and coworkers are. All they see is PTSD and relationship trauma. Not good at anything like that. But they see the freedom. They see can have any place to live I want. They see can have any vehicle I want. They have any. Life isn't a vacation when your life is the vacation. Which brings me to the 4th thing that I get laughed at about a lot, even as I'm investing and reaching financial freedom. I hear people say, now that you're wealthy, why don't you buy $1 million house? You can afford it now. Once my net worth grew, I hear this more and more and more, which is true. I can afford it because I didn't buy one. I lived in that first duplex for 7 years. And then I moved out of the duplex into a 4-plex. People saw another step back. I saw growth. That move basically doubled my cash flow. One move across town. Because I got paid to live in the 4-plex and I got to rent out the unit in the duplex. Lifestyle inflation keeps people broke. Strategy sets you free. I'm not worried about what other people see. I'm worried about what my plan is. I got laughed at about this a lot. And these last 3 months have made this kind of fun. Been retired for 3 years now. Spent several months in Portugal, did a Yellowstone trip. Just went to Scotland and Ireland. We spent 3 months for the winter here in Thailand. We have to figure out where we want to spend next winter. Life is a vacation. But the 5th thing people laughed at me about the most for 8 years straight was I never took a vacation. 8 years, no vacation. I sold back vacation time every year when it was the use it or lose it kind of thing, just to have a bigger paycheck, to have more to invest. That got me, I think, the most flack. The house, the moves got me laughed at, but the no vacations, I had to actually almost have like therapy talks with the company I was working at to say, no, I don't need a vacation. I didn't want to say, now that I've figured this rentals thing out, as long as I don't take a vacation for 8 years, I'll never have to take a vacation again, because that would be telling them that my plan was to quit. Everyone else was traveling and upgrading their house and upgrading their cars, and I wasn't missing life. You won't miss life. We're building the life we want. Now, my life is the vacation. Most of them are still looking forward to their 2 weeks off a year. Short-term pleasure, long-term pressure. I chose the opposite. I also got laughed at for the cars that I drove. For several years, I had two Jeeps. One was 17 years old and one was 19 years old. And these weren't classics. These were rattle trapped together so that one would run well enough to get me to work. Man, when your employees show up in better vehicles than you, year after year after year, talk about the laughter you get. Now, my friends, that whole time when I was getting laughed at for my old cars, they were buying $90,000 trucks to pull their $150,000 RVs. And since the $90,000 truck really isn't a commuter, they had to buy a $35,000 commuter car to save on gas. So they had a truck payment, an RV payment, the car payment, insurance on all of it. Well, I had two paid off vehicles that I could work on myself to keep running. Minimum just liability insurance to pay for someone else's vehicle, because I wasn't paying an insurance premium to replace a vehicle that I could replace for $1,000 probably. They looked rich. They think they're rich. I was getting rich. This is what no one tells you. When you start focusing on a better financial future, you will be judged, but not by successful people. People like the REI Avengers, who are speaking on the second day of the One Rental at a Time event. I think we're closing out the day. And we have the Midnight Denny's meetups coming up in Vegas. The One Rental at a Time event is the 14th and 15th of February in Las Vegas. See you there. That's where I'm actually flying to when we leave Thailand. None of us, Zuber, the lumberjack landlord, Millennial Mike, me, none of us are going to laugh at you. Even if you just started saving or just looked up your credit score for the first time, or you're making your first offer, or using the binder strategy where you want to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent for the first time, or you're selling a property because you made a bad deal because you purchased before you did some research. Nobody's judging you, Alex. We're cheering you on. We're rooting for you. Don't laugh at him. We're wanting to see your success as much as we wanted to see our success, because we know you're all probably surrounded by the friends, family, and coworkers that we had in our lives saying, that's so risky. It's gambling. Don't you remember 2008? Here's 100,000 Crash Bro videos telling you why you should wait. Here's 10,000 gurus telling you their investing strategy is the only path to financial freedom with a $40,000 course attached to it. People are going to say, don't take the risk. Just enjoy life. You're young now. Enjoy your life now. That won't work, whatever strategy. My brother, who reached financial freedom by buying 10 rentals using the HELOC system, buying and paying it off and fixing it up, laughed at me for about 5 years because I was buying with mortgages. He doesn't do that. Called me a moron, which is a familial term of love for us. He ain't laughing now. And yeah, he doesn't want to be me. He's financially free, 10 paid off rentals, travels, I think, more than I do. But when he sees my cash flow is twice his and my net worth is triple his, maybe the mortgage thing wasn't such a bad idea. Look, you can't stop people from judging you or laughing at you. You can't ignore it. I'm not telling you to. But you can dilute it. If you can get around a different environment, get around people building assets, local meetups, investor groups, better content, avoid the Crash Bros. Try to have more encouragement friendships than legacy friendships. Remember, there's a big difference between knowing somebody a long time and a long time ago. Everyone else is going to have an opinion. And almost all of the ones you know now aren't financially free. Dilute their opinions. I'm not saying cut out all your friends and family. I still hang out with a guy who was a mortgage underwriter who says rentals are a terrible investment. And for him, with his terrible personality, inability to manage tenants or a property manager, yeah, it would be a bad choice. But for me, the guy's one of my closest friends, and he's going to work until he's 70. He's got some good stock investments going, but he's not working on a retirement. He's the I love working kind of guy. I need something to do kind of guy. Me too. I need to scuba dive, write a fantasy novel. Write one novel for investing and put it on Amazon. Do YouTube videos to help other people have a better financial future. Because imagine how much better the world is going to be if more people had jobs they wanted instead of jobs they had to have for the money. That's the intro to this video, which will be released as a separate video on another day. Hopefully, it made you think. Time for the questions. Next week, a little housekeeping. I don't believe there will be a live stream next week. I'll release a video on Tuesday at 4 p.m. because I'm going to be on an airplane flying to Vegas. Somehow, magically, I leave on Tuesday. I travel for almost a full day, like 22 hours of traveling, and I arrive on Tuesday. But there will be midnight Denny's meetups at the Denny's on the Strip. If you're in the school community from One Rental at a Time, we've put out the Denny's info on there. I will pin a comment after this video in the comment section below with the address of the Denny's we're going to be at Wednesday night and Thursday night, not Friday night, because you should get some sleep before the event, because it is 2 days with a bunch of presenters, people that I still learn from. Greetings, Josh. Howdy. Good to see you here. Corridor Chris. Hola, amigo. ¿Cómo está? That Flipping Nurse. Howdy. I hope you enjoyed the book. Adrian Romero, Early Bird Chat. Howdy from Los Angeles. Very sorry to hear where you live. I was born in Los Angeles. Saugus, to be exact. LA County. And joined the Marine Corps to get out of there. To get out of the high desert. And they put me in 29 bombs. In Saudi. Kuwait, and all the places with dirt. And then when I got out of the Marines, I looked at the entire country and I thought, all right, where does it rain? I want to move there. And I looked at Maine and I thought, too many Stephen King stories. So Washington won. And now Washington has gone so insane liberal, I don't think I'm going to be staying there anymore. We'll see. I don't know. So Frank and Cynthia, something to consider. Just being transparent. Howdy, Wayne. Good to see you here. That Flipping Nurse. Dion, a furry now. Spent too much time in Thailand. Yes. Weird shaving up here for the scuba, but time to take care of the beard. Corridor Chris. Howdy. Good to see you here. Jason, happy Tuesday. How is Chicago doing? Is this really my 200th? It's a bit more than that. So it's the 200th one that was numbered. I did several live streams in the beginning where I didn't number them, and then I did a few where I don't know why they weren't numbered, but only the thumbnail gets numbered, not the video. So you can't search by numbers. You have to search by the topic idea of it if you're looking for a specific live stream. But this is over 200. I planned on doing enough videos to reach a few hundred people. I was answering questions on social media, Facebook, BiggerPockets forums, and I realized I'm answering the same questions all the time. Should I have an LLC? How do I raise the rent? Where do I get a lease? How do I screen tenants? And I thought, well, if I just make some videos on these topics, I can send a link to people instead of having a full conversation or having a phone call with somebody who's never going to take action, doesn't own rentals, and is just talking on social media. So as a time saver, I made a few videos. And then I realized that there is a ton. I have 1,000 topics in real estate that I'd like to make videos for, but nobody's going to watch 1,000 videos all at once. So I do one on Tuesdays that lasts a couple hours, as long as the questions do, which is why there's an intro giving people a chance to get questions into the comments, because if there's no questions, the live stream ends. One day I should try to do a 24-hour live stream, just see what happens. And I can have other people jump in and out too, like Matt and Mike and Beth, and maybe Zuber, depending on the time. That's a thought. I'll probably lose it later. The intent was just to have a few videos to send to people. And here we are. Minimum 200 live streams spent. And it's really, thousands of live streams if you count the Thursday and Saturday live streams that I do that are usually 10 to 15 minutes long for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. Howdy, Mark. Good to see you here. Aloha. BuzzTune. Howdy. Thank you. Jasek. Hello, everyone from amazing New Jersey. Aloha, bienvenidos, stuck in Vegas for my W-2. Hopefully we'll see you in Vegas at the Center for the Blind for the One Rental at a Time event. Kicker, that was Big Bird. Kicker, just got tenants and a lease for my first rental. I'm on the Dion path, moved out of my single family and rented it out. Let's go. Awesome. It starts slow. You might feel some big changes now because if you moved and you did a purchase, I mean, those are huge changes that a lot of people never even get to. But in the first few years, there's a trap you can fall into. Last week, I did the equity trap where I talked about those two yahoos that don't understand rentals, that were talking about rentals. And like I said, I don't understand flipping. I don't understand wholesaling. So you don't see me teaching classes on those or down talking them. There are people who are super successful in those strategies. That's not me. But the trap you can fall into is now that you've made some moves, you're going to see a YouTube video where somebody like Cody Davis had 30 rentals before he could legally buy a beer, right? So he grew a massive portfolio that he's now correcting, downsizing or right-sizing his portfolio to what he wants. Or the financial firefighter, Mark Ashiro, who has said in his own videos on his channel, where he does a lot of good live streams, that he emptied his retirement accounts. He bought 14 rentals in 2 years, and then he had a big struggle to stabilize that portfolio. And that had he bought a little slower, it might have gone easier. I don't know which one's the right way. He got some great deals that are stabilized amazing now, but he had some years of stress to get there. I purchased 1 in 2 years, 1 in 2 years, 1 in a year and a half, right? So in, 6.5 years, I did 3 whole whopping deals. Then things sped up. So right now you might be tempted. Tap equity. That's what people call it, tap equity. What I call it is add debt to an existing asset. Home equity line of credit, cash out refinance, sell for 1031, right? That's a temptation, but it will cost you cash flow or increase your cost of living expenses. Or people are going to say, borrow against your 401k. Or forever, we've been able to take money out of our 401k as a down payment on an owner-occupied house. Trump sounds like a genius because he's saying, hey, why don't we let people do what they can already do and use your 401k as a down payment on your house, which you already can. Or borrow against your 401k, which some people have. These are all temptations that I wouldn't do in the beginning. And this is a Coach Carson conversation from Las Vegas where on third party, he was talking to somebody else. He said, when we start out, we tend to make our biggest mistakes. And if you're moving fast enough, you won't realize you made a mistake until you've made it several times. It's a butchered version. He was much more eloquent in how he said it. But yeah, it's okay to go a little slow in the beginning. Once you've got your investor legs under you, confidence in your ability to get your return that you're expecting, then things can go faster. Year 7, when I moved into the fourplex, my next purchase the same year, I emptied out my retirement accounts, purchased a triplex. But I wouldn't have done that in the beginning, or if I had done it, I probably would have made a mistake, bought a bad deal. So congratulations. Sounds like you're doing awesome. Bo Rivers, howdy from Texas. What part? Maybe later in this video, I might help some people that have been to the country of Texas that has 19 states in it to choose from where to live. And so here's the thought process on narrowing how to move. I am trying to avoid the liberal insanity that hit Seattle and is now spreading to the rest of the state. So I might stay in Washington, who knows? But if I looked at the country, I don't want to be a desert rat. I didn't like the desert that much. I wanted out of it. But I don't like cold winters. So that pushed me to the south a bit. I don't want liberal states. So that directed me towards Utah, Tennessee, Texas. Hurricanes and tornadoes pushed me out of most of Texas, parts of Tennessee. So I'm slowly narrowing it down. I have a nephew and niece that live in Texas. One is near San Antonio. My niece I have to figure out where she lives. Like I said, there's 19 countries or states in Texas you could choose to live in. But I want to narrow it down to places to look at. I will not be looking at the market. There is no price to rent ratio. There is no, population growth or expansion or retraction that's going to impact my video. You can invest in any market successfully. Yes, 2 blue county and a 2 blue state, not going to work. So San Diego, LA, Seattle, you're out. Those states are starting to be out completely for me now. But yeah, I don't choose a market on. I choose a market on where my trusted boots on the ground are going to be, and that's going to be me because I'm moving there. Howdy from Northwest Indiana. Howdy. CC Carr, how are you doing? Corridor Chris, congrats to Kicker. I agree. Skinny Dog Properties, new member. There will be a members meeting called this Saturday. I believe it will be at 6 p.m. Pacific. No, 7 p.m. Pacific. It'll be 7 p.m. Pacific Saturday. And in the members only call, we look at deals. There is a chance we might be looking at deals in Texas this time. But it is to analyze the market, look at deals, decide if they're worth keeping, throwing away, researching to see if it's worth making an offer. It takes 45 minutes to learn the skill. That takes about 3 to 5 minutes to use in practice. Hope to see you there. And all of those videos are on YouTube in the members only platform, so you can watch the previous month's one too. So you don't have to wait for future ones. You can binge all of the ones we did before, where you learn exactly step by step, looking at a property, what do we look at, what do we consider, and what makes it a good deal. Because it isn't the math. Math is one box to check. Jasic, never got criticized by someone doing better than me, but surely every single person tells me what I should be doing. And ain't that the truth? What to do with your beard. Nicole, howdy. Big Bird, I don't know what this is or how to participate. Well, let me explain. So this is a live stream. Everyone is welcome to comment. There are several moderators in the comments who will take out the ban the bots or whatever. You can be as rude as you want to be to me. You can ask me rude questions. You can say, oh, this guy looks gay, whatever makes you think something is rude. But if you say anything rude to anyone else in the comments, you instantly get banned from the channel. So that's the only kind of rule. No rudeness to other viewers of the channel or guests on the channel. So if I have Dana or Mike or Zuber or Matt or anybody on the channel and you say something rude to them, you're gone. Because I don't control how thick other people's skins is. I control how thick mine is. And I don't mind criticism. So Big Bird, thanks for hanging out with us. This is every Tuesday, 4 p.m. If you don't know me, I'll just be as quick, as concise as possible. Laid off in 2008, single parent, 3 kids, started teaching at a CDL school, making $17 an hour, found out about $89,000 in bad debt in the divorce that I didn't know existed. Took 10 years to reach financial freedom. Retired from a job that I loved because I did start teaching at the CDL school, but over the next decade, I got demoted all the way down to president of the company. My last 2 years, I finally started making more than 60 grand because they realized I was making more at my rentals than I was at my job. And even making more than 6 figures at my job, financial freedom, time freedom won out. In 2022, I walked away from that job, shocked pretty much everybody, kind of myself too. And now I've had over 3 years of traveling and goofing off. I did a BRRRR. I don't like it. Not doing it anymore. I buy from the MLS with conventional loans. I have a strategy called the binder strategy, where my tenants ask me to raise the rent. So every Tuesday I come on here and answer questions for people who want to do something similar. And there are people here who invest in stocks or crypto or real estate. And if you don't invest the way that I do, what I've done is joined a community of people in the One Rental at a Time community, in the BiggerPockets community, where if you want to invest at a distance, out of state, or self-manage a huge portfolio, or do flipping or wholesaling or BRRRR, I have somebody to recommend for you to watch if it isn't me, because mine are super boring. Like the 4 words that describe me and my portfolio: boring and not sexy. I don't want it to be exciting. I want it to be super boring. Buy a property from the MLS. It's got to check off some boxes. And I go over what those boxes are in a lot of videos. And then I let the debt do its work. I let the tenants do its work. It takes about 2 hours a month to manage my portfolio. I've tabulated the entire time here. I've been in Thailand for 3 months. I spent more time doing my visa extension than I did managing my entire rental portfolio while I was here. And that includes making a couple of offers. I've got 2 offers right now on fourplexes that they've countered on. And they're really close to where now I got to choose. So that took more time than managing my properties while I'm here. Howdy from Kansas. I have done no research on Kansas. AI didn't bring it to me when I was asking qualifiers like leans red, or at least has enough red counties, less hurricanes, less tornadoes. There was some other criteria I was looking for too. Mild winters. Wyoming came up as one. Tell the winters thing. Howdy, Ms. Millie. Ben Fophell. Howdy. How do you handle the tenants covering lawn care, snow removal on a duplex? I cover it now, but would love to give that responsibility to the tenants. So I would go, there's a couple tiers to this. First, legal. What is legal? And there are some areas where I don't know if snow removal is legally allowed to be put on the tenants. I don't know. I don't live there. I live in Washington where there is no R, but there also isn't a lot of snow. Lawn care, it's in the lease. Tenants take care of it. Now, I do have some tenants where there's an older couple on one side, and I say older because he's my age and I ain't mowing the lawn. They give the other duplex, I don't know, 50 or $100 a month or something, and they take care of the lawn on both sides. But each of their leases say they're responsible for their areas. There's 2 places where I have a lawn care service. My 4plex, because the yards are not clearly delineated to this belongs to this unit. And I don't want to put up fences because the openness of that is one of the things that people like there. But my triplex and all my duplexes and the single family house, I only own one single family house. They're all marked. All the tenants take care of that. So the first one is the 4plex. I have a service do that. And then where I live in an up-down duplex that's on a severe hill. So I don't want the responsibility of a tenant or me weed eating that. So I pay a service. And they're a licensed, bonded, insured company where if they get injured, they have an L&I. So I'm good with that. So that's how I handle that. So it's 3 tiers. What is legal? What is the property shape like? And then the 3rd tier is, what's everybody else do in your market? It's going to be really hard. Let's say, hypothetically, you were renting where Matt, the lumberjack landlord, does in Siberia, or what he calls near Boston. He's in New Hampshire. Live Free or Die state. Lots of snow, though. Let's say he pays for all snow removal, and he has 150 units, and you have a couple rentals in his market, and you say, nope, tenants have to take care of that. So the tenant's looking at his rent, your rent, and with him, he has snow removal, and with you, you don't, right? So the idea is do what's normal for your market. In my market, Washington State, all my properties are in Washington between Olympia and Tacoma, but not in Olympia or Tacoma, Washington. It's normal for tenants to mow the lawn. It's normal to not provide washer and dryer. It's normal, I don't know, maybe even required, I don't know, for the owner to provide refrigerator and stove and dishwasher. Whereas in Gary, Indiana, where Millennial Mike invests, I don't think you have to provide almost any of those appliances. So what's normal for your area, the shape of your property, and start with what's legal. Better assets or better liabilities? Wayne Wong, exactly. Man, so many people buy liabilities so they can look rich. Arlen Eundorf? Cool name. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Do you invest in tax-free municipal bonds? So here's the totality of my investing strategy. Investing strategy, not my investments, investing strategy. Totality. 1 checking account, 1 saving account, 1 credit card, 1 spreadsheet with a tab for income and a tab for expenses, 0 stocks, 0 retirement accounts, 0 crypto, period. 100% rentals. The tax benefits on real estate is better than tax-free bonds and a retirement account because I get to write off against future income with real estate. I get to depreciate the money the bank has in the property. I can 1031 these. Like there's all these things I can do. And it cash flows. My worst return on any one of my properties after owning it for 5 years, I need to do a whiteboard video on this, is around 150%. That's cash flow, appreciation, tax benefits, principal pay down. None of that happens in any other asset class. Bonds might be a better asset class. Crypto is the best performing asset, Bitcoin, of the last decade, right? Stocks could be a better investing asset class because the asset class doesn't make it what's good or bad, right? There's a ton of people who invest in real estate and they tap their equity, they equity strip, they flip, they wholesale, they create a job, they hate it, they quit. They weren't a good investor. I'm not an entrepreneur. I buy a property, I put a tenant in place, I maintain it, and I wait the years it takes for it to become a good investment. That's my thing. I'm good at that. Now, if you're good at earning money, don't want tenants, don't want to watch stocks do their vertical pong, don't want to have the stress of over 50% crashes in Bitcoin in the last 12 years now, bonds might be your thing. And you might perform the best in that because it fits you the best. So stocks might be better. There's a guy on YouTube I recommend people watch if you invest in stocks named Joe Kuhn, Kuhn. He retired at 54, uses the bucket method, only invested in stocks. He did some live-in flips, real estate, but never had tenants, right? So he's got a great strategy, great information. I didn't start thinking about money till I was 40. So I didn't have decades for compound interest to do its thing. I didn't have any money. I was making $17. That took me 2 years to save the down payment on an owner-occupied duplex. So I don't have enough to invest in stocks for it to have an impact in a short period of time. And I didn't have the time for small amounts to even dollar cost averaging to have compound interest to its thing. So could stocks be a better investment with a better return than my real estate? Sure. If I had more time and more income. Is there some ifs in there, right? So you speak from Pascal, if then. If you have time, then maybe stocks. If you make more money, then maybe stocks. If you are short on time and you don't have a lot of money and you have a bad debt to income ratio, then house hacking becomes top tier, the biggest thing you can do to impact your portfolio. So investing is not always about the assets as much as the investor and why they chose their asset class. That's a good question. Thank you. Julie, howdy. Have you discussed a prenuptial with your fiance? It's a negotiation and you should both have an attorney. Yeah, I'm sure there will be. She has 2 duplexes I'm sure she doesn't want me to have. And the prenup would be a requirement on both of our ends. Kind of like if Millennial Mike was getting married, he should have a pre-up because Tia owns property from before they met. And she needs to protect herself just as much as he does. So, yeah, it's a good question. Guess we'll know by 2071. Hungry, not thirsty. Howdy. My job gives me 6-week paid vacation. It's not terrible. It's almost like sabbatical. You could take a sabbatical, but that wouldn't be paid. It was a decade. Yeah, sure. 6 weeks a year would have been nice. I probably could have done that. I think my last 2 years when they started compensating me, I did start to take, it goes 7 years, 8 years, no vacation. Then I took a month and went to Colombia. The next year, a month in Thailand, right? So I did start doing that. Still, nothing compares to there never being a weekend. You could take a year vacation. Hungry, not thirsty. Let's say they give you a year's paid vacation every other year. You still have a ticking clock. You still have January coming up. You still have a schedule. You still have coworkers, compliance, expectations, responsibilities. The difference is if somebody goes to prison and they get a 4-year sentence, if they're smart, let's say because I believe we're all felons, just most of us haven't been caught, and I've never been arrested in the United States. But let's say you go to prison for 4 years, not just jail, you're in prison. They have education options if you're in there long enough. They have work options, right? The furniture company has contracts where you can create packaged to be shipped furniture. And you don't make a lot, but it's like a couple bucks an hour, $1.80 an hour or something for commissary use. But you come out with a resume that says, been working at Sheldon's Furniture for 4 years, or Ashley Furniture or whatever one, not been locked up for 4 years. But so you're making a plan for when you get out. But let's say you go to prison and you get a life sentence. You will be in there forever. There is no get out early. There is no parole. You either go insane or you think, okay, if this is my life, how would I build a life if this was forever? When you retire or you take a year or 5 years off, but you're going back to work, it is a ticking clock and you realize how short life is. When you hang your hat up and you are not going back to work, like scorched earth, everything would have to fall apart for you to go and try to have an income again. You think life is so long. Look how much time there is to enjoy. There is no ticking clock. So 6 weeks, 6 months, great. Still wouldn't go back for it. And guilty too, Alex, but still laughing. There you go. Mr. Don, big fan of the show. I currently have 6 rental properties, and I like your viewpoint on not having corporations or everything, but just having umbrella insurance. Thank you. That's the goal. It's that you're not a new investor, but those people that don't even have one yet, thinking, oh, should I get an LLC? And they stop in their tracks. You got to 6. If you're like Dave Meyer, the host of BiggerPockets, and you have every property in an LLC, who cares if he's buying more? There's so many people that don't buy more because the work it takes to have an LLC, the cash flow it kills, the risk that it adds, the cost that it adds. Later, you want to add it? Who cares? If you have partners, have a corporation, an LLC. If you're going to use money lending that requires it, hard money or whatever, sure. But there's a long list of reasons why not one of my properties will ever be in an LLC or even in a trust. A trust would screw over my heirs. Like my brother did to his heirs on purpose. Arlen, what do you think about quadplex for 1.2 million rents or 1,500 pro forma broker thinks 1,750 Madison, Wyoming, Wisconsin. I went to school in America and they don't teach us much. I'm an autodidact when it comes to everything that matters to my investing though. So so this is one of my favorite questions because I get this most of the time. I'm looking at a rental property. Here's the price and here's the rents. What do you think? Right? Like that's the premise of most, like even good investors with decades of experience still do the same question because that's the question that we can calculate. We can go, what's my cost to acquire? What would be my down payment? Here's an owner occupied. Here's a 20% or 25% as a rental. What would the current interest rate be? 5 units or more, Cody Davis, Christian Osgood, you're going to talk about net operating income and you're going to say, this is what it's worth. This is what I can do to make it worth more. 4 units or less. We don't use cap rate. We don't use net operating income. We use cash on cash return on investment. So what is my annual profit divided by cost to acquire? It's a 47-minute mark for anybody who wants to come back to that. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire gets you a yield. So if you invest $10,000 to purchase a property and it makes $1,000 a year, you get a 10% return. If it makes $10,000, it's a 100% return, right? So if you invest $100,000, I put $100,000 down on my duplex in 2021. If it made $10,000 a year in profit, I'm getting a 10% return on my money, right? So it's annual profit, $10,000 divided by cost to acquire, $100,000 will give me a 10%. You can go up or down on that scale. So when it comes to the math, what's normal for your market? If you're in San Diego and you get a positive number, that's an outstanding deal. In Washington, where I invest, most years, if I came close to a 10%, that's an outstanding deal. I bought some break-even deals because math matters. And this is what we do in the members-only meetings that we do twice a month. And you can watch all the previous members-only calls because they stay there too. We analyze a deal. 45-minute conversation, about 5 minutes, we will cover the math. That's how important it is. I don't know the percentage of that. It's 5 minutes out of 45. So, because we don't practice the math until we get it right. We practice the math until we can't get it wrong, right? You want to know your numbers really well. But let's look at this fourplex. Is there enough parking? I would want 8 parking spots off street. Are there washer dryer hookups in each unit? Because my strategy, I want small multifamily as similar to single family as is possible, because the tenancy in a single family house is usually 7 years. Tenancy in an apartment is usually 2 years. I want low tenant turnover. So if it's a fourplex that doesn't have good parking, it's going to have more turnover. I don't like 2 units up top, 2 units down bottom, those big box looking fourplexes. That's the most like an apartment. My fourplex is townhouse style with garages side by side. Like I prefer all of my duplexes to have one up down because it's on the water, view all the way around. And it's my house hack while I'm traveling. But my preference is side by side because you don't have noise complaints. One plumbing issue affects one tenant instead of 2. I want pet-friendly fenced yards because people with pets are less likely to move. I want garages. Does the fourplex have garages? Does the fourplex, is it side by side? Is it up down? So none of those is a disqualifier. I own an up down. My fourplex doesn't have fences. All of my properties do have washer dryer hookups. They're all class C properties. I don't want to own high end. I don't want class B or class A, and I don't want D, which is a war zone. So A is super high end, doorman, gated community. B is McMansions, big, more than 2,500 square feet houses in nice areas. I don't want good school districts because that means higher taxes and guaranteed tenant turnover when its kid is out aged at their school. Like I've got this list of criteria where math is like, here's the list, math is in there somewhere. You've given me the math, right? That's what you're looking for. $1,500 rents, so $6,000 in income, 1.2 million. Your mortgage is going to be over 6,000. You're going to have a negative return, no matter what your down payment is. Looks like a bad deal on math. Pro forma means, I'm going to use a bad word. So if there's kids in the background, pro forma translated from legalese into common language is made up bullshit. So you can't trust pro forma, and you can't even trust existing leases. And remember, your broker's job is to close the deal. It's your job as the investor to do what is called a rent study. That takes several weeks at a minimum. You go to Rentometer, it's usually wrong. That's just my opinion. You go to Zillow and Redfin and you look at rentals that are currently for rent that are as similar to the one you're looking at as possible. So if I'm looking at a fourplex, I wouldn't try to compare single family houses. I would try to compare other small multifamily, right? 2 to 6 units is what I would compare a fourplex at, with similar amenities. So if there's storage sheds and garages or a swimming pool or anything like that, you try to make sure you're comparing as much as possible. Sometimes there isn't a lot of data to go off of there. Go to fair market rents, look up what will Section 8 pay in Mike. So you just Google fair market rents, look at 2026, the information's already out. 2027 will be out before October this year. What will the government pay for your property? What their maximum is includes utilities. Look up basic allowance for housing if you're anywhere near a college or a military installation. What will the military pay somebody to live off post? Or what will the GI Bill pay somebody if they're attending college? These give you all data points you can use to go, what should rents be? It's never pro forma, it's never existing leases, and it's never what your broker says, because all of those can be made up or skewed to make you want to do the deal. One of the fourplexes, I have 2 fourplexes offers out right now. The current rents are extremely low in a rent-controlled state. So that's a consideration in what I want the price to be. I'll make sure my text isn't, you're muted. So I have to consider how long would it take to stabilize that with tenant turnover or rent increases in this new limited situation. So that's why my price was so far off of their list price and how long they were on the market. So in this situation, math says no, but I'm looking at a place where the math says no too. What number does make sense? How long has it been on the market? What can you do with rents? Will it be owner occupied? Will that help you with tenant turnover at some point? Like there's a whole bunch of this that goes into it along with the math, which is not a bad question. Like that is a good question. You need to get the math right along with everything else. Thank you for that question. That was great. Mr. Don, one question for you. Does it ever concern you the fact that you say you only work 3 hours a month? 2. Worry you that the IRS will come after you regarding depreciation? No, depreciation, I could work in the property 0 a month. Depreciation has nothing to do with the amount of time that you spend. I'm not a real estate professional. I'm not a real estate agent. I am not using cost segregation studies to offset W-2 income. So if I was doing any of those things, yeah, you have to work in real estate more than 751 hours. You have to work more in real estate more than you do your W-2. I don't have a W-2 and I'm not doing that anyway. So it's a good consideration. Anything you do with the IRS, nothing that I just said should make sense to you. You should hire a tax pro. You should hire a CPA and say, here's my thing. This is what I'm investing in. This is what I make at my job. What should I do? People like the lumberjack landlord had his wife qualify as a real estate professional because she does meet all of that criteria. And then they were able to offset his W-2 incomes, right? So there's ways to it works that way. But I don't have to work in real estate 1 minute a month to use my depreciation because I use standard amortized depreciation. I don't do bonus. I don't do cost segregation studies. Don't need to. When I had my job, I just paid a metric F ton in taxes because I didn't use real estate to write off against W-2 because I wasn't a real estate pro. Didn't have a spouse. Didn't work. I've never worked 751 hours in real estate. Mr. Don, since they require real estate professional 750 hours. There you go. So no, I am not a real estate professional and never will be. Long list of reasons, almost as long as the list of reasons why none of my properties are in an LLC. Ryan, all-nighter hider. Howdy, are you back from Gary now? We should be. You should be headed to Vegas soon. Hello from the Bronx. Stephan, howdy. I don't know if I've ever been to the Bronx. I've been to New York. It's near there, right? Gavin, howdy. Sounds like a college rental, but every deal needs to be done through, and nobody can answer if it's good or not. Exactly. That's it. No one can answer if it's good or not. And to caveat on this, people could say, well, it would make if you rent by the room in a college town, if you rent short-term rental, if you did midterm rental, I run the numbers as though it was a long-term, and then it at least has to break even if I was going to do short-term, because short-term can go away. You have municipalities and billion-dollar hotel chains fighting short-term all the time, changing legislation. Saturation can happen. But so let's say the better strategy, the more productive strategy, was not an option. What would it do as a long-term rental? Worst case scenario. I want to at least not lose money. But yeah. Ryan, I'm crazy busy in the garage, but absorbing the wisdom after hitting the like button. Every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. Mr. Dawn. There's nothing to do with depreciation. There you go. Bonus and amortized. Bonus depreciation, cost segregation studies, when used against W-2 income, that has something to do with it, but not against regular depreciation. And the Denny's has been warned, and they're on board. Awesome. They will have more than one waitress who hopefully got tipped a ton last time we were there. And have you looked in Sun Prairie or Cottage Grove, Wyoming, if Madtown doesn't work out? There you go. Pays to know your local market, because somebody is investing everywhere successfully. Jason, he does not use the real estate professional thing. That is true. The grumpy contractor. Howdy. Flavio. Howdy. Jason, throwing out a little, got up to 27 today. Thawing out a little. Oh, nice. It got all the way, man. I can relate. It was down to 79 here the other day. It was rough. And yes, that did mean that the 81-degree weather in the private pool and on the beach was warmer than the air. Creating a playlist helps you a lot. Yeah, I do need to create playlists, but the members only is all there to watch in any order. I should make playlists on this video, but I'm not really a YouTuber. I'm just an investor who's saying here, because look how much editing happens here, right? My first 6 months, I thought I'd be a YouTuber. I edited, took 10 hours to make a 10-minute video. Now it takes probably an hour's research for clarification, and then the 10-minute live stream. And these 2-hour live streams, that first intro probably takes an hour's bit of research to get the thoughts in order. So yeah, that's something to consider. Can you make a video? So this is from Nicole. Can you make a video on how you choose insurance for your rentals? Yes, I could do that. I need to take a picture of that. I can definitely do that, because that is a standalone video thing that would need a bunch of information. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Alan, howdy. Since you only have one personal checking account for both personal and your rental properties, doesn't that create challenges with commingling funds? I don't have an LLC and never will. I have had LLCs in the past when I ran a nonprofit that worked with the CDL school. I had a flatbed trucking company that I failed at. I had a furniture delivery company that my marriage helped me fail at. I'm not an entrepreneur, and I have learned that through trial and error. I'm an investor, and I have no LLCs, so I commingle all my funds because all my money is all my money. Doesn't create. No, I do have to have a little bit of discipline and go, yep, that 50 grand over there, that is reserves. You don't touch that. This is, I don't know, what else do I look at when I look at my money? I have my reserves, which is just sitting in my account. I just don't use it. I try not to have too much in my checking account because it's easier to have a checking account hacked than a saving account. So I tend to not have more than 100 grand in the checking account. Usually, these are fun numbers when you started making $17 an hour, and $1,000 was a great barrier to get to. I kind of mentally go, yeah, I have this much for a down payment because $50,000 is my reserves, total, whole business, personal, business, everything. It's 50,000 reserves, my down payment, but then I'll have closing costs, money for immediate repair. So I did just mentally do that, but you can make this as complex or as simple as you like. I'm wondering how you keep everything cleanly separated for taxes. And I give my spreadsheet to the CPA and they do it. I don't have to. The IRS has never looked in your checking account and gone, okay, these funds have to be separate. They look at your checking account when I was audited in 2016 and they go, I see your expenses. Thanks for having everything in one account for me to look at. Actually made it easier. Brian, howdy. Do you fly first class on these trips to Asia? That is one of my goals, to be financially free enough to do that. So just for everybody that doesn't know and hasn't been to Vegas and seen me in person, I am a homunculus, which means I'm about 3'6". So I don't have to fly first class to fit in the airplane comfortably. If I was Millennial Mike, who is actually about 9'4", he should fly first class so he fits. Chesla is into luxury and she uses the point system. So she flies first class most times we go anywhere. Super short trips, she might skip it, but I don't. It's, did I make this video? This is where it's fun. I don't know if I've made this video or released this video yet, but the habits it takes to become financially free are really hard to break. It's really hard to go to a restaurant and not look at the prices. It's really hard to consider an expense and go, well, the nicer car and the older car, they both get me there the same, right? It's like your brain still thinks in frugality to reach financial freedom. I did make this video. It was, when you spend money, you don't just lose the money. You lose the opportunity to invest it, which means you lose the return. So $1,000 expense, go buy an iPad for $1,000, doesn't cost you $1,000. Cost you $100 a month or a year for life, for your kids' lives, forever, in perpetuity. And that's just a 10% return first year. Most of my properties are 40, 50% by year 5 or 6, right? Value add, tenant turnover, binder strategy, refinance to lower rate, raise deductible to lower premium, like all the things you can do to increase cash flow that take years to happen. So I'm looking at, a 50% return. A $1,000 iPad cost me $500 a year for the rest of ever. Hard to break that mentality, but then you have to think, okay, I've won the game. Stop playing. I could fly first class everywhere. I'm in Thailand, where there are really nice hotels for $35 a day. Last time I was here, it was like $15 a day. That's $35. I'm in a $200 a night resort because I want private pool. And that doesn't mean we have our own pool. I mean, that's private pool, fully enclosed. It's like having a quarter size of Olympic bathtub outside. Yeah, we don't have to stay in a place like this with a Michelin star restaurant attached to it. I am training myself not to be, because when my brother and I travel, David and I have been to Thailand, we've been to Portugal, we've been to Colombia. We can do it. This entire trip with me and David would have cost me about $2,000. I'm spending $5,000 a month while I'm here. So I've spent probably $15,000 while I'm here. And in Thailand, that is a metric F ton. It's a technical term, metric F ton of money, right? Because luxury is okay. And I'm with Chesla. She's a little more luxury. Yeah. So it's okay to have your own demons you have to battle. And mine is frugality. I had to set those reverse budgets. When I'm in the US, I require myself to spend $2,000 a month eating out. Here, to spend $2,000 a month eating out, I think we'll hit that goal, but it is a challenge to find the restaurants that cost that. Oh, 24-hour live stream with some of the water that makes your eyes water. That could get interesting after a few hours. Might end up being one of the few videos that I ended up taking down. Logic Barbarian. I love it. Howdy. I just closed on my second property last Friday. It's turning into a much bigger project than anticipated. I'm in the demo process now, but at what point should I start getting permits? A lot of cities, municipalities will require permits before demo. So, transparency. The Lumberjack Landlord goes live Thursdays, 6 p.m. Pacific. This is a question, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific for Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord. I've done one burr and fought the permit people for 10 months. And it's probably one of the main reasons why I'm selling that property. It's going to be the first property I ever sell, and it's because of how the permit process went. My knowledge base would not be good enough. This would be the same as if somebody said, hey, I want to invest out of state. How would I do it? I would say, hey, talk to Millennial Mike. Here's his Instagram handle. But the lumberjack landlord is the best person to ask that question to get a better answer. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm the lazy investor from the MLS. I never did a rehab until after I retired. And after I rehab, I did my first rehab on one of my properties, and it was a burr. And while it financially was a good call, it was a huge mistake. I never want to do it again. Nope. But congratulations. Yes, it's probably going to be more than you anticipated. I would talk to the local contractors in your area and find out, based on their interaction with the city, how does your municipality most like the permit process to go? Do they only want to be bothered when it's you actually have something that they have to approve, like a P-trap inspection, a water heater inspection, or a certain amount of drywall? Or is it they want to know in advance that you have work done so they can flag one of their workers to drive by there every now and then so they have something to do? The local contractors are probably going to have the most information on your market. If you go in and talk to the permit office, it's always puppies and rainbows. No matter how it really goes, contractors will know how it really goes. Local investors will know how it really goes. Alan, do you have umbrella policy for each of your rentals, or do you have one umbrella policy that covers all your rentals? Apologies for a stupid question. This is a really good question. I'm not sure I understand umbrella policies to be able to say that's not how they work, or this is how they work. I have one umbrella policy where all of my properties are listed under that umbrella. So I have up to $300,000 in what they call injury or slip fall coverage. I have full replacement value property insurance on every property, right? Not make the mortgage whole, not cost to repair when I bought it, but current, what would it cost me to replace it? That's what I have my insurance for. If a claim goes above the $300,000 in injury, not the cost to repair, that's not what the umbrella is for. I'm not even sure if it could. I'm sure somebody who works in insurance can explain it better. Mine is if an injury goes above $300,000, then I've got the umbrella policy for that. And so some umbrella policies will let you go up to 4 properties in it. Or some will do some. Mine is a requirement that any property I acquire goes in that umbrella. And it's underwritten by Stillwater through Geico, and some years they've offered it, some years. So I've always had it because I'm grandfathered in, but some years I've had people call and they won't offer it, and other years they do. So hunt around when I make the video on how to get your insurance. This will all be covered in that video too. But I have one umbrella policy that only kicks in if it goes above the insurance on that property. Southeast Texas region, oil and gas driven, Trump country, got to worry about hurricanes sometimes. Yeah, so the hurricane thing is a little bit of the concern. Basically looking for an area where you can put a MAGA hat on and walk around and not get shot, and not have people tell you liberals are the people of peace, but they're the ones who will attack you if you put on a different kind of clothing that they don't like. So weather's a factor too. Hello from Long Island, New York. Howdy. San Antonio is desert. Is San Antonio desert? Because when I was there, well, if it's desert, it's a very different type. I know it's hot in the summer, I'm sure. But I'm talking desert, Edwards Air Force Base, Rosamond, California, where there is nothing but dirt. There's nothing green unless somebody painted it or planted it and delivered the water. When I was in San Antonio, there's trees everywhere. My brain doesn't say trees when it says desert. It's probably considered a desert based on the amount of rainfall, because there are 2 deserts that are bigger than the Sahara based on rainfall. That's Arctic and Antarctic. Those are both deserts. Bo Rivers bought 4 single-family houses and also turned my house into a 5th rental all last year. Still trying to convince my wife to move into an apartment. Not going well. That's a lot to do in a year. That I don't know if you have the stabilization or the cash flow right yet to say, hey, look how amazing this is. We should go move into an apartment. Good luck with that. This is not the spouse information channel. That's Zuber and Lumberjack. They're the successfully kept the spouse long-term information kind of people. My kids called them stepmother de jours. But I think once it starts to show fruits on the trees, it might be a little easier to get the spouse on board to help water the tree. Maybe. What matters to your spouse? That's what I would figure out. For you, it might be financial freedom, a better financial future. For one person, a couple that I was working with, the cash flow mattered. So I said, yeah, on the next deal, you guys are creating $600 a month in cash flow. 200 of this is hers. And he can never ask her where it goes. She can save it. She can spend it on her friends. She can get her nails done, whatever. It doesn't matter. The 400 isn't his because he wants to invest for a better future. So that 400 goes to the better future. And then she was on board because she got something she wanted. She didn't really care about the investing. She loved her job. She didn't think retiring early was ever going to matter. But they were able to make a move. Lumberjack landlord said, you're looking to buy in Thailand. Have you found anything? No. I did look at like what it would take to buy here. I did some research, and that might have been where the idea came from, because the concept was we can't own the land. We can do a 30-year lease. We can own the property. About $90,000 here gets you a villa with a pool. This is one of the only places I would own a non-heated pool because the sun heats it itself. Orientation of the building would matter to me. I would want to make sure it gets plenty of morning sun. So, because I like warm water when I swim. I looked in Portugal to buy. So that whole entire trip was a tax write-off against real estate. This is a write-off against YouTube income, which is a whole whopping $700 a month. So yay, you can retire on that, right? You can almost retire on that here because the average income in Thailand is $800 a month. So yeah, you could probably. Not looking to buy here. So that's not what this trip is about. I looked into buying here. Instead of buying in Portugal or Thailand, where we are foreigners investing, driving up their price of property, I purchased in the US and I allocated the cash flow from that property, 12 months of cash flow, to the 6 or so months that I travel. So if it cash flows $2,000 a month on a duplex, that means I have $24,000 to spend on the living area in those 6 months of travel, just from one asset. That's how I look at it. So I'm going to continue to invest in the US and because I don't want to be tied to Thailand. And just in transparency, I love Thailand. I've had a great trip here. Chesla's not a fan. The infrastructure here on plumbing is not the best. So there are some smells when you're walking the streets. The food, she's not a Thai food fan. So it's been a challenge. We've got to go to the nicer restaurants for her to enjoy the food. We went to El Gaucho's yesterday. There was an El Gaucho here. I didn't have the tomahawk, which is what I normally have there. I had I think I just went T-bone. I didn't even go porterhouse here. It was one of the better steaks we've had on this trip. But you're not paying $12 to eat in El Gaucho, right? You're actually paying real cost there. We enjoyed Portugal, but I don't think she was a fan of that. So we're going to Mallorca this year. So I've gone through several countries to find where I enjoy. Like I love Colombia. I love the Colombian people. And I loved Cartagena because I'm a water person. But the rest of my time in Colombia was Montesalas, Pereda, like the hot springs. And I wasn't really a fan. It was big cities in the mountains, and I can get that at home. So I had to travel around and figure out where I like and where I don't like. So if I purchased in a country, I'm then tied to that asset. Bruno, howdy. Gavin, big fan of Texas Hill Country just west of Austin. Something to look into. Yeah, okay. Howdy from Colorado. Love these long format shows. Thank you. Every Tuesday. And I talked about maybe a 24-hour live at some point in the future. Definitely not while I'm traveling. Chesla would murder me. But when I get home, we'll see how that goes. Because I can lock myself in the office and I'm not really an interruption to anybody. And I might have somebody come on every few hours so I can eat. CRM, why do I only see one members only video on your YouTube channel? Last week, there were several. Might just be a YouTube glitch. It must be. They're all there. They're all available under YouTube, under members only. There should be if you only see one, maybe you're seeing the playlist because there was a playlist there for them too. That might be the difference. Leon Tran. Howdy, do you write your own offer or submit, or do you have a realtor do that on your behalf? Thank you. Great question. Much appreciated. I actually do appreciate every question you guys have had today. These are great. I love it when a teacher says, there's no dumb questions. Sometimes I'll have a dumb answer. So I am really happy when my agent makes his commission. There's like a tiered system to the level of stupidity that people do. The first stupid thing people do is try to talk your agent into lowering their commission to make a deal work for you. No, especially my agent who makes 20 to 30 offers because I watch days on market, I make low offers, or in the beginning, I would make asking price offers on something that was definitely going to go for over asking to get in first so that when their deal fell through, I'd be there in second position. Like I've got a strategy for this. So I've had to explain to my agent, here's my mentality to why I make these offers. And so this week he's made 2. They've countered. Still not sure which one to go for. So I'm putting him to work. I want him to make a commission because one of these is one he reached out and said, hey, have you looked at this one? Like agents don't always know your buy box well enough, because if you're trying to talk down their commission, why would they do extra work for you? Especially home buyers. Most agents work with home buyers, but if you find one that works with investors and knows that I represent future purchases, future sales, I want him to make the commission. And I do not want to take the time to learn the verbiage for a properly structured financing contingency, inspection period contingency. None of that. I don't want to know the state laws on what can I communicate. I'm a buyer. So yeah, I have an agent do that. I used to have many agents with auto searches set up to find them. The NAR settlement kind of made it harder to have agents set up a search without signing an exclusivity agreement. But I have relationships with a few agents who still have their searches set up. I've done 5 deals with one. So he's just the best that I've worked with and constantly sends me the right things. And he's prompt. We closed on a deal on his honeymoon because I'm that terrible investor. We've closed on a deal when I was traveling. We are working fine while I'm in Thailand with these trips because there's a 15-hour time difference between us. Yeah. I have gone and put roofs on for my brother on his rentals. Flat tar, carried the rolls up to the thing up the ladder, and I'm not 20 anymore. We did a shed roof last year. I've never done a roof on one of my properties. I'm a hired pro. Will I help my brother when he's doing something retarded like his own roof? And the last 2 he hired the same roofing guy that I use. He's finally seeing the light that the tenants pay for this. And yeah, he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, and he's risking his life or at least an injury on a roof when he could hire somebody to do it. Same thing when it comes to legal documents, strategy, negotiation, catching red flags that I might not see. I want to pay a professional doing the roof. I want to pay a professional making my offers. And I want them to make their money. I've never gone to my roofer and said, oh, you would do that for $8,900? Tell you what, I'll do it if you offer me 8. No. I compare his $8,900 against somebody else's 15 and some retarded GAF company's 32,000, and I go, 89 sounds great. How about we do this? I give you $1,000 tip. Long as it's done on the 2 days you've said it would be done. If it takes longer every day, tip comes down $100. I've never had him Clearview Exteriors out of Yelm, Washington. I've never had him do something wrong, have to come back to a problem. They've gone to my other places and fixed problems, small ones. Never had a tenant complaint. Absolutely never had a problem with his pricing. Yeah. So never had a problem with my agent either. Hire slow, fire fast. I went through several agents to get to the one that I've worked the last 5 deals with now, though. Greetings from Southwest Ohio. Howdy. Cash flow is freeing. Howdy. Good to see you here. Bo. Hill Country might be a good place to look. Dripping Springs, for example. Cool. I will look at these chats later when I'm looking around. Are you still purchasing properties from the MLS? That's all I look at. I have a YouTube channel with over 25,000 subscribers. I make 3 or more videos every single week. I have never had a wholesaler or a flipper bring me a deal that wasn't so highly priced and such an embarrassment that that's why it's not on the MLS. I have not seen an off-market deal that was better than an on-market deal, primarily because I also don't do rehabs. I want rent ready or tenant occupied, and those tend to be on the MLS. And yeah, my 2 deals that I have out right now, my offers are on the MLS. They have countered, and I don't know. Like, I think I would pounce on one, but then I started paying attention to the way the socialist regime in Seattle is swinging, to thinking maybe it's time to invest in another state. And that's what narrowed me down to Utah, Texas, or Tennessee. So we'll see. And this is where a good relationship with your agent helps, because I've had him do the work of making 2 offers that I might just back out of. We'll see. If they come back at my price without a counter, which they haven't yet, then I'd probably just follow through. CRM, what are your strategies for researching rent prices in a new market to become confident calculating your cash flow? Covered this about 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to do it really quick and concise at the 1 hour and 21 minute mark. So if you need to hear it again, 1 hour and 21 minute mark. I check Rentometer, but I don't trust it because I've seen it off 30%. I look on Zillow and Redfin to see what are current rentals going for that are as similar to my property as possible. Number of bedrooms, garage, pool, fenced yard, washer, dryer, hookups, that kind of stuff. Is it a single family? Is it a small multifamily? Is it an apartment? Like, what is similar? And I watch those for at least 2 weeks minimum. Which ones went really fast, which ones were listed, then went away and came back much higher because they had undershot and had too much demand. Like, pay attention to that. It takes a couple of weeks. Then I'll go to fair market rents, Google fair market rents, look at what the Section 8 program will pay in your county, in your state, depending on your population. That might also be broken down to zip code. And then I'll look at basic allowance for housing. So what will the military pay somebody who lives near a base, or pay somebody who's using their GI Bill to go to a college? Those are a bunch of data points that will tell me this is what the average tends to be. I'll estimate 5 to 10% below that, and think, if I owned a property at this amount, no matter what current rents are, no matter what pro forma or made up BS is, or what existing leases are, the caveat to that is existing leases in a rent controlled state could add a little time to your correction with tenant turnover to rehab units. The result of rent control, more people lose their houses. So those are all the data points that I would use. And I do it consistently when I'm doing the binder strategy, so I know in advance what my tenants are going to see. And then I do it just before purchases to make sure I'm current on where rents are and how they've changed, because it's not just in your market. In 2021 and 2023, I bought properties a little bit further out than I normally do because remote work had pushed rents up, but not prices. Now remote work is kind of stabilizing. More people are less afraid of getting called back to the office, so prices are starting to catch up with those higher rents. So it's a constant ongoing, when you're in growth mode, study. And when you're in retirement mode like me, and you have said, okay, I'm not going to buy anymore, but as the money piles up, I'll be buying something every couple of years. In that moment, currently I'm doing rent studies where I'm buying. Stephen, howdy. When you took your 2 years to save up for down payments, did you also save up a separate amount specifically for reserves before purchasing a property? I did. So you have to save your down payment, reserves, closing costs. In the beginning, I recommend doing that. That's why it took 2 years. I also had to get the rental income on 2 years tax returns. So there was a bit of a timeline there to help me be patient. But in year 7, when I had 3 duplexes and my single family house, I had 7 units. I had pretty decent cash flow. I was house hacking. I'd been demoted a few times at my job, and I was making almost $60,000 a year, which was a lot more. I started less than 40. I was making 60. So this was like 2018, 19. I started making closer to 60,000 a year. In 2020, that was the first year they decided to actually start paying me real money. I went down to $200 in my bank account to my name because I had 1 paid off property. So I had a high equity position. I had equity in my duplexes. I had used my retirement account as a reserve. I wouldn't do that in the beginning because you're going to need your reserves in the beginning. I wanted to wait till I had reserves because I needed them in the beginning. But once I had the cash flow, I was buying a 4-plex where there were tenants in place, rents were current. I expected maybe 1 or 2 of those to be an eviction process, but 1 or 2 would be paying. I'd get rents coming in before my mortgage was due. So January 6, 2020, I had $200 to my name. February 1st, I had over $10,000 in reserves, right? So I knew because the cash flow, the higher income, the money from the new rental and no mortgage payment on that first month of ownership, because it's your first full calendar month you don't pay. So in January I didn't pay, but I got the rents. And in February I didn't pay like a $3,000 mortgage, but I got the rents. So money built up fast. That doesn't happen in the beginning. In the beginning, I would save and have the reserves before I made any kind of purchase. And then I emptied out my retirement accounts next and bought the triplex. I wouldn't start with that either. Ninja Vanish. Howdy. Glad to see you here. Just in case you're just coming out, Ninja, there will be a members only video this Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Ryan, my stepfather is in a ladies' prison. My stepfather is in a ladies' prison, Las Colinas. He took a job there as a culinary arts instructor, and he loves it. It's very rewarding to see his graduates in the real world adding value. Nice. Is he in ladies' prison, or is he working at a ladies' prison? Because there's two different stories there, Ryan. Tell me when we're in Vegas. But I love I worked at the CDL school. I would do a lot of presentations. I would go on the military installations, but I'd also go into prisons and I would do presentations on. I have a different resume theory. It's like the binder. It's like everything else I do in real estate. It's backwards to everyone else's theory. There's a video here on YouTube called "Why Your Resume Is Not Working," and I would do that presentation. I probably did it about 20,000 times, but I enjoyed doing it at prisons because then when they got out of prison, I would have them work with my nonprofit to find jobs, and I would, recidivism goes down when employment goes up. So it's good to see. Alan, wait. I never read these before I put them up. You don't have your properties in a trust in case something happens. I have aging parents, and in case something happens to me, I worry about placing my rentals in a trust for them. Do you understand how much you can screw your parents over if your properties are in a trust? So Ryan will tell you the government's going to take somewhere around 40% if your properties go into, what's it called? When you're probate, when your property's going to probate. Yeah, you're going to lose some money to the government. They're going to take some, sure. You give them a trust, they're going to lose 100% and be in a crap ton of debt they didn't expect. So maybe your parents are different. So I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. I have 3 kids. They have no interest in rentals. One of them has been indoctrinated by the school system to be a socialist, and owning properties is evil. Landlords are the worst of the scum of the earth. ACAB written on her legs when she would go to work, like no interest whatsoever. My other 2 kids, they're okay with it, but they don't go to the rentals. They don't deal with the tenants. They would not have reserves. So if I handed them a portfolio in a trust, do you think trust means magically this will be managed perfectly? Or managed by somebody who knows what the F they're doing? No, you give the trust to them. They become the officers of the board. You are removed when you die as the officer of the board. There is no inheritance. So, look at that. No stepped up basis. No depreciation reset. No capital gains reset. No depreciation recapture wiped off the board. They're stuck with, if we sell these and there's any debt on them, we could owe more than they're worth and more than the depreciation recapture and capital gains that we have to pay. And you expect them to manage properties, have reserves, deal with tenants, deal with tenant issues, handle handymen, handle contractors, deal with municipalities, deal with tenant turnover. If they show an interest, Matt the Lumberjack landlord is doing it right. He has his young kids while he's buying. I didn't start buying until my kids were almost 18, getting ready to move out of the house, right? I was 40 when I started saving. Right? He was like 40 with 19 kids under 5 or something. So he's got all these younger kids. They're growing up in the business. So if he hands them a trust, they'll go, yeah, this is what we've been doing since we were kids, and we just keep doing this. His kids will be fine. My brother has, I have a niece and a nephew, and for years, they both completely wasted their 20s because he had 10 paid off rentals and retired, and they were like, yeah, we're set when dad dies, but that ornery bastard isn't dying. So they got into their 30s, and my nephew was like, I'm going to move to Texas. Brilliant move. So he lives near San Antonio, which is one of the reasons why I was considering there, in an area full of trees. So not sure why. Maybe it is desert. I don't know. Turned his Washington place into a rental, and he's in Texas looking for his next rental. So how does a lease work? He's dealing with a property manager in Washington. How do repairs and maintenance work? He's keeping reserves. He's monitoring his cash flow. Every now and then he calls his uncle for a little advice, which is really cool. So now if he inherits the trust, sure, it'll probably go well. But had he never got interested in this, if your parents show no interest, you are completely effing over anybody who inherits a trust. This is how bad it would have been for my brother. So he watches these sometimes, so I'm just going to be transparent. He's a control freak. His daughter is a single parent with 2 kids who he swears was a virgin until she was, probably still is in his mind, is perfect. And his son will only do what he wants. He closed down his tree service because his son didn't get into it. Like everything he did was for his kids, but he tries to control them in every way to where they kind of rebel. His son became a gamer because his dad hated it. His son became a truck driver because that's easier work than trees. I joined the Marine Corps because that's easier work than the trees that my dad did. Like your kids are going to do kind of the opposite of you. David put it into his trust that you can't sell these properties for 10 years. Because the fear would be he gives them to them, all his hard work, and they sell it and they just waste the money, which is what's going to happen. Well, now they're in a trust and they can't be sold for 10 years. So if they're mismanaged, run into the ground, run into legal issues, there's a trust that has laws or rules above them that make it even worse for them. Then add something stupid like timeshare, like I did a video recently on, you can even make it worse for your heirs. So yeah, an LLC makes sense when you have partners. An LLC makes sense when you have lending or finances that requires an LLC. A trust makes sense when you have heirs who are involved. Mine's going to go to probate. And I don't care if my kids got 50 cents each. That's better than the mountain of debt and the bankruptcy that inheriting a bunch of properties could cause. That's great. Alan, thank you for the question. So I do these live. Sometimes I never know what content to make until somebody asks the question. Andrew, howdy. What's up, brother? Are you from Hawaii? Is that pigeon? Thank you for your content. Looking to pick up my first property in the next 1 to 2 years. How do you go about selecting the right market and the process of understanding it? Learning the market is easiest in your backyard. So start learning that market there. Even if you're in like San Diego, California, where it's probably not going to be the market you invest in, study there. It's easiest because you can drive around and check things out. I was a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets rookie boot camps. I don't know if they'll be doing them anymore, but I can't specifically go over what their list of here's how you pick a market is. But the one that matters the most, and I don't even know if it's on their list, it's the one I harp the most on. I will invest in a bad market. Population declining. I purchased a duplex in McKenna, Washington. Their population went down by 30%. I still bought there. I mean, it was 600 to 400. So it's a tiny little town, which is also one of my criteria that I don't usually do. But that remote work thing's been a killer. My rents there have doubled. It's cash flowing almost $1,000 a unit, and I've only owned it for 5 years now. Yeah, it's my almost newest property. So the metric that you need, people are going to say, go to U-Haul, see where the trucks are going. Population is growing in these areas. You want economic drivers. You don't want just one base or one port. You want a base, a port, a college, a hospital, Boeing, Amazon, large population. You want 2 or 3 of those, right? You want economic drivers. That means sources of tenants. You want to know, don't trust crime statistics. Don't go to Crime Stop, because I was an officer for 8 years and we reported crimes when the chief wanted more equipment. All of a sudden, everybody gets charged with a felony. When the mayor wants to get reelected, all of a sudden felonies become misdemeanors. So all crime data is cooked, and that's just my opinion, but that was my experience. But you can call your non-emergency police number and say, hey, I'm looking at this market. I'm looking at buying a house to live in. Is this a safe area? Can the cops go there by themselves? Do you guys do a lot of warrant service there? Cops are usually happy to talk, especially when it doesn't create a report they have to write. So it's just a question. Not all departments will do this. Mine did it all the time. So the other one is you can call property managers and say, hey, I'm looking at buying rentals. So with police, you want to be an owner because they don't like tenants, because that's where your issues come from. With property managers, you want to represent future work. So you want to say, I'm looking at buying in this market. If I buy on this street or in this street or in this neighborhood, would you manage that property? Because they have to send the handyman there. They have to go there and collect rents when there's an issue. Those are the issues. Those are the ways I would look at crime stats. So all of that is great ways to look at the metrics for a market, and those all matter. But the metric that matters the most is called trusted boots on the ground. The reason I say learn your own market where you live, because you're the boots. You can actually go and say, well, do I hear gunshots every night? Are there bars on the windows? Do I feel safe even driving through this street? This looks like a really nice rental on Zillow with amazing pictures, but it's next to 7 burnt down houses that are now trap houses. You can't see that on their pictures online, but you can go and do it all in person. Then maybe you look to invest in a different area. Where do you have trusted boots on the ground? So me, if I start moving to Texas and buying in Texas or Tennessee or Utah, I think I've eliminated one of those. I think we eliminated Tennessee. I forget why. Hurricanes, June bugs, maybe. Oh, no, I know what it was. I don't know if I can say it. I'm going to say it on YouTube because if this cost me subscribers, I would want them to leave. I don't think I want to own in Tennessee because of the racism. Both sides. That there are sides is the issue. So I think that was what eliminated it for me. I think. I'm going to move there and rent for several months before I even start to look at buying. I'm going to learn that market. If I was going to invest out of state, I would do what my friend Millennial Mike did. I was literally going to do what he did. He watched Mark Matsky from Matsky Finance invest in Gary, get up to 25 rentals, not fall on his face. And then Mike was like, cool, you're doing this, you're successful. Let me use some of your handyman contractors, property managers, your systems to go into this market. A terrible market that Mike's doing great at. Somebody can invest successfully almost anywhere. I gave myself a year when I started looking for my next duplex in 2022. I said, hey, if I don't find a duplex in a year, I'm going to start investing at a distance. And I'll use Millennial Mike's handyman contractors, property managers, and systems to get into that terrible market where I would be fine because he's doing it. Trusted boots on the ground. That's how I pick a market. Where do you know somebody? Where are you willing to go to live? How does your local market work? And if you're going to go with trusted boots on the ground, I believe Mike would come to my funeral tomorrow. So I would use his trusted boots on the ground. Do you know somebody you trust well enough that they will probably come to your funeral? That's who I would trust. I wouldn't trust an agent. I wouldn't trust a lender because the lender's job is to sell loan products and the agent's job is to close deals. And if you called Gary, Indiana right now, because that's where Mike invests, and you talk to any agent and you say, I have California money, I want to invest in Gary, Indiana, they will send you an amazing looking deal with like a 20% cash on cash return, great pictures. And it'll be such a great deal that you won't see why all of the local investors passed on it, and you will lose money for years on that place. You need the trusted boots on the ground. That's how I pick a market. Patrick, howdy. Loved your book, and now my wife is reading it. Are you reading or listening? Just curious. We just rented out our unit in our house hacked triplex, and we are renting for a few months while we save for our next house hack. Thanks to you. That's awesome. Brilliant move. Love it. Congratulations. And I hope the book helps. Big Bird, I have an LLC owned by my trust and one property in Southern California. Could you please elaborate why this is a bad idea and would recommend reversing all of it? Don't know that I would reverse it. Having it and continuing to buy rentals, there's no issue. And I'm going to do this as short as possible because I have a full rant video. It's literally called a rant. Why you probably don't need an LLC, Dion talk. So why do you have an LLC? Most people think asset protection and tax benefits. That's the two reasons I hear the most. I hear every now and then anonymity. I don't want my tenants to know who I am, but my tenants live next to me. I don't care. What are you hiding? So that's not the reason I'm going to go with. First, let's go with tax benefits. In 1996, the IRS determined all sole proprietor LLCs are disregarded entities, meaning they do not exist. I get absolutely every tax write-off that you do, except paying for the LLC. I can write off everything. I can write off my trip to Portugal when I looked at real estate. I can write off meals. I can write off repairs on the houses. I write off 80% of my cell phone bill, 80% of my internet, 100 square feet in my house, like all and where I live. Like all of these things that you can use with an LLC, I get all of that stuff as a write-off without an LLC. So there's no tax benefits. Then the second thing, asset protection. There is none unless you have partners. For years, piercing the veil was the way to go. So if you commingled finances, didn't set it up perfectly, people could say all of your assets are all your assets. But now the majority of judges are using the 1996 IRS precedents of all sole proprietor LLCs are disregarded entities as those are disregarded entities. When you are sued, all of your assets are your assets, including all of your LLCs. So no asset protection, no tax benefits. If you have partners, an LLC protects you from their mistakes and protects them from your mistakes. If there is no tax benefit to an LLC. But if you need lending, sure, have an LLC. If the hard money lender requires it, or if your DSCR lender requires it, they don't all, but some do. Sure, or if you're going to have partners. But here's what you do. LLC sounds like a corporation. Corporations have deeper pockets. You are more likely to get sued, statistically more likely to get sued with an LLC than without. Insurance costs more, financing costs more. Take out house hacking, can't own or occupy a loan in an LLC. Unless you commit mortgage fraud, which is what most people do when they own it in an LLC, or transfer it to their LLC and hope the lender doesn't trigger the due on sale clause because you committed fraud. The lender said, here's your interest rate as long as you intend to live in it and you're the owner. As soon as you put it in the LLC, you're lying to the loaner, to the lender, saying, well, I'm not really at risk because I put a barrier between us that you can either pierce or disregard. My interest rate should have been higher when I bought it because that's how their lending works, but you lied and committed fraud. So yeah, long list of reasons. Insurance costs more. So there's some other, if you're in the state of California, my brother owns 3 properties in California. None of them are rent controlled. If you put them in an LLC, rent control instantly because it's owned by an entity. So any property in California owned by an entity, rent controlled. I think you can outdo that if you own or occupy it, but I don't know the research enough to do that. So look at all of the negatives that you get. Where's the positive? So here's another negative. You have it in a trust, you have it in an LLC, your brain maybe works through structure. Take the thousands or tens of thousands of people who would like to own a rental, and somebody says you have to have each one in an LLC because you want to protect it and you want those tax benefits. How do you name them? How do you file for them? Because you can go online and find 1,000 websites that'll file what you could do for free. They'll file for you for $500. Then now you have to maintain it. So you have to have a CPA when you file your taxes. They don't just file your taxes; they file taxes for you and each of your LLCs. So while your taxes could be $700 or $800 a year, yours are probably $2,000, or maybe $1,000 to $2,000. So how do you pay yourself from your LLC? How do you not commingle your finances? I don't even have to think about that. All of the barriers that are put in place by doing what other people suggest are fine if you continue to add properties. Now, let's say you get up to 20 properties and you have an LLC for each, 20 refilings every year, 20 tax returns, 20 which LLC owns which property types of spreadsheets. I have one checking account, one saving account, one credit card, one spreadsheet with a tab for income and expenses. You can get my spreadsheet for free. If you go to diontalk.com, I made a free binder course. So it's how you get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent. I made the course for free because it helps tenants and landlords. But in that, you can download my spreadsheet that me and my CPA made together. That's my whole documentation that I need. Now, yes, I do have a leather binder book where I put pictures in there, and it's like a vision book to record data in. And every one of my properties has a contact in my phone with tenants, lease amounts, renewal dates, contractors, dates they work there, layout. The image is a layout of the property with where the water shutoff is, where the breaker box is, highlighted with little things, like make it super simple, contacts in your phone to where I never have to think. I can travel in Thailand and my entire business is right here. That's a supernatural thing, supernatural tattoo. I'm a nerd. Everybody sees stuff like that and they go, oh, make some Jesus comment. I don't get it. Watch TV. But not in growth mode once you reach financial freedom. So yeah, I mean, that's my shortest version of a rant on the LLC stuff. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying don't let it be the barrier. Like, here's another example of where an LLC made sense. The lumberjack landlord has a kid who has a pre-existing medical condition that is in full remission. Things great. But he wanted premium healthcare, top of the line healthcare, when he left his job, which he did, I think 2 years ago now. So this would be the 2-year anniversary, I think. He created an LLC, hired some employees for his property management stuff so that he has a small company to get healthcare through, to get premium insurance at a more affordable rate. There's a reason for an LLC. I had an LLC for my nonprofit. I had an LLC for my flatbed company. I had an LLC for my furniture company. Like, there's a ton of times when LLCs make sense. Owning rentals is just not one of them usually. Patrick LaFay. Also, did you hear about the new Spokane eviction laws having to give 6 months? This is one of the reasons I'm out of there. So it hit Seattle too. Seattle was that way. Olympia's getting that way too. That's spreading to the state to where I'm getting to the tipping point of maybe this is not the place to live. Now, I'm not going to sell all my properties there. I've got some very dialed in the right counties with the least amount of issues that I probably see myself keeping. But will I definitely sell the one in Port Orchard because of the permit office? Yes. Will I possibly sell the single family house because it's paid off? because it's one of my only ones that doesn't have cheap debt on it. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, no, the stricter, more democratic leaning laws that have benefited me for the last, 13, 14 years do have a tipping point. And I did the LLC explanation. Thank you, add-on. Hopefully it helped. Usually because LLC is a pass-through entity and piercing the veil is very easy. Judges treat them as disregarded entities. The headache of paperwork to set and maintain is not worth it. Man, I wish I could have done that in like 20 seconds too. But I wanted to get full emotion across. Get good insurance and umbrella. 3 forms of asset protection that I actually use. The first one, insurance. I talked about that earlier. Insurance on each property and then an umbrella policy. Second way, I own 8 properties. 6 of them have mortgages. The banks are in first position on 6 properties. Third way, most important, this is the most important form of asset protection. Be proactive and fix crap. Tenant calls you and says, this door squeaks when I open and close it. Probably not an emergency. Tenant calls and says, the banister's really loose. There's someone out there working on it today, right? Be proactive to fix things. Do inspections. Take tenant complaints seriously. You got everything under his personal name. Everything is under my personal name and will always be under my personal name. Do you pay for annual termite bonds, warranties for any of your rental properties? I know it's location specific too, but just curious. It is very location specific. And so the way I look at it is if I lived in a climate where we had dry termites, I would probably have every other year treatment. I live in Washington where there is no R, but there's a bit of rain. So we have wet termites. Well, the way to cure wet termites is to eliminate the water source. So I've had 0 issues with termites. That wasn't easy to resolve. Literally replace a siding, window, that Ryan can explain better, caulking done right, eliminate the water source, get rid of the wet wood. They take care of themselves. Yeah. So location specific. If I start moving to the country of Texas and they have dry termites, I will probably do every other year treatment. That's the plan. Andres, I have previous tenant damaged the bathtub and left the place trashed. I spent $3,000 fixing the house. These were not wear and tear. They don't want to pay. What would you do? They're not going to pay. They give you a deposit. That's pretty much all you can ever get for them. If you go through an eviction and you take them to small claims court, sometimes you can go after that, but they're still not going to pay. So how long was the tenant there? How long have you had it as a rental? And let me give you an example. In November of last year, I did a video. The thumbnail is me and my son with full face mask, R91 masks or whatever the construction ones. So if you see that thumbnail, I forget what the title is. But we go into a unit that's trashed. The guy was an electrician. He stole all of the outlets, the 50 amp outlets, half the breaker box, the washer dryer plug-in, the stove plug-in. Like, I don't know if he used them on job sites or took them for his new house when he bought or whatever. They left a bunch of stuff. They had pets inside. They were urinating in the corners. Everything was bad. This was a $9,000 repair. By the time I gutted everything out, replaced everything, put in LVP flooring, repainted, treated for smoking, like it was $9,000. Didn't cost me a penny. I bought the place in January of 2020, so I had it for 5 years. They moved out in November of 2025. I have been setting aside 15% of gross rents for 5 years, which in this case was about $13,000. So expenses do not impact cash flow after the first year. So if you had this place, you bought it, and the tenants move out after a month, this is coming right out of your pocket, goes into the column of what is called cost to acquire. You had to spend this money to make it rent ready. Me, I had a tenant turnover that cost me $9,000, but that tenant has paid me rent, which was cash flow, but I also had the discipline to set aside 15% of gross rents, and of all the tenants, but of just this unit for those 5 years, that was over $13,000. So I profited $4,000 from that tenant on their unit, because it's not just for the unit, it's also all of the units towards the roof, the foundation, the water heaters, the whatever. So in the first few years, this feels like it comes out of your pocket, because it kind of does. As you grow your reserves and when you run the numbers on the thing, which we do in the members only, we don't go, the mortgage is $1,000, the rent is $1,200, so I'm making $200 a month. No, the mortgage is $1,000, but I'm setting aside 15% for gross rents. That means $150 a month goes into an account. And if the rent is $200, I'm only making $50 a month on this rental. So that's why it's called a pie tie, based on the lumberjack landlord's expenses: principal, interest, taxes, insurance, expenses. We set that aside the whole time. How long was the tenant in there? And were you setting money aside? I expect to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on every tenant turnover, even if the tenant didn't trash it. Because a lot of times I buy places that have carpet. Carpet's going to be LVP. Almost every time it's going to be painted. That's never hire a painter, have handyman do painting. Painting a unit, I've gotten quotes of $3,000 to $4,000. Handyman, mine charge $400 or $500 a day for labor. Painting a whole place, maybe 2 days worth of labor. It's less than $1,000, or it is $1,000. It's a quarter of the price to have a handyman do painting. And I've had painters go, yeah, but I'm going to do such a good job. We're going to save you paint. You're going to save me $300 in paint by costing me $3,000 more to do the labor. No thanks. I don't need edges. I don't need trimming. It's a rental in a Class C market. I need paint to seal the walls. CM Car, $2. Thanks for streaming. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate that. Andres, send them a bill. Keep their security deposit. Ask an eviction attorney if it's worth taking them small claims. Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. That good. Patrick LaFay, getting a good woman in your life can cure any fragility left in your systems. The person it's like the top 5 financial decisions you make in your life, right? Is it college, military, career, trade school? Is it, I don't know, there's things, but nothing comes close to choosing who you spend your whole life with. There are other videos that you took down. Yeah, I did a video with the Lumberjack Landlord and Millennial Mike on our political stances, and I took it down because I don't want to. You can shadow ban your channel. So Todd Baldwin, who invests near Seattle, does rent by the room. He's been on Millennial Millionaires. He's been on Jubilee, like super successful guy, great information. Had a YouTube channel out on, hey, here's how you buy properties, do rent by the room. You have a room to bathroom ratio, and here's how I handle the common areas. Like great advice, right? His channel was getting 60 to 70,000 views a video. He was killing it. He made a really well edited video on the dangers of socialism and got shadow banned. He was lucky to get 300 views because you couldn't find his channel unless you typed in the name of his channel to the last thing. It wouldn't show up during the shadow ban. So he quit. He was like, he doesn't do YouTube anymore because he got shadow banned. That's very dangerous here. So I kind of want to make a channel on Rumble where you can have a political opinion, because no one comes on real estate to go, I want political advice, other than I would go, this is good to me, sound advice. I don't want to invest in a blue county in a blue state. I want to own in a red county in a blue state until the state goes to blue. Like that's the political commentary. It's not pro or anti-Trump. It's not pro-Democrat or pro-Republican or either way, because I'm not in either camp. I can think of reasons why I hate both. I have one sentence that pisses off both sides I can use anytime I want to. But yeah, that one came down. I left up the one about how I got into $89,000 in bad debt without knowing it. Wasn't sure. That one took a lot of Tito's to get to make. But yeah, I don't think I've taken down many. I've taken down a few where the sound was horrible. Something was wrong with the mic, or like last week I was muted for 4 minutes. I left that video up. Sorry about that. Tech turned investor, happy. Bo Rivers, I'm in the insurance business. You described the basics, Kevin Bell, perfectly. It's pretty normal to be able to put up to 10 properties in one policy, covered up to $5 million liability. Nice. Yeah, I do 2 million. I might step it up to 5 eventually. I think my brother's is 5. Even though my portfolio is worth more, I think he did a bigger policy. So thank you. Appreciate that. SKREI, how do you keep your insurance costs lower? What percent deductible do you use? What percent is safe? So when I was starting out and I didn't have a lot of reserves, I think my deductible was like $1,500 or $2,500 or whatever the standard kind of come with. Once my reserves got to 30,000, I raised all my deductibles to 10 grand when they would allow it. I think I have one policy that 5, they won't go up any higher for some reason. So 10,000 is my minimum when I'm getting a new policy when possible, because I will never use insurance unless it's like a complete burn down. Right? I'll be 30,000 or 40,000 out of pocket before I use insurance, because insurance rate can triple and nobody else will insure you for 5 years when you have a claim. Like I'm not risking my entire portfolio for 20 grand. But to get the best insurance, I'm going to make a whole standalone video on how I get my insurance down. Part of that is insurance shopping, but how do you insurance shop? Is it a broker? Is it calling ones? Which ones to avoid? Which ones are ridiculous? What do I actually have covered? How to bundle, how to represent future business. It's a whole standalone video I'll be making probably within a week or two after I do. To present for 10 minutes probably takes me a week or two of research if I'm going to present. To make video, a video takes hours worth of it. To prepare for a 2-hour talk where you lose your voice, less than an hour to prep. I think I was riding the shuttle bus from our resort here on Koh Samui to Central Koh Samui yesterday for the massage and the shopping. That video happened on that van ride. They will laugh at you when you invest. Bo, if you're in a cheap area, go with lower deductible. Insurance is a little higher here in hurricane country, so I raise the deductible to keep smart. Yep, know your market. That's one of the reasons why I do get higher cash flow is I target high cost of living areas. So if I do move to Texas, it's definitely not going to be where's the cheap properties at. I'm going to find a place where the duplexes are a minimum 400,000. I don't think I'd invest anywhere where duplexes cost less than that because I want the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. And the cheaper the property is, the more properties it takes to create more cash flow. What's your take on Tom McKay, who interviewed with Zuber before? If it was the one that just came out this week, I tried. I couldn't listen. The guy's hesitation when he talks, his speech pattern, if that's the guy I'm thinking of. It was the guy who did a reaction video to Pineda's video. I couldn't make it through his reaction to it. So I don't know enough about his strategy to give commentary. Beth, howdy. See you in Vegas. Sorry, I don't know who Tom McKay is enough. I follow like Ken McElroy. I watch Grant Cardone. I watch Kris Krohn, but mostly I'm one rental at a time. Lumberjack Landlord, Millennial Mike, like taking all of their different strategies and taking bits of it to put into mine. Maybe I'll take out Tom McKay unless it's that guy. There's something with his voice. There's probably something with my voice that people can't stand, and that's why they don't watch my channel. Some people don't like bald people. I had a choice: testosterone or hair. Andrew. My wife and I are hoping to fire in 8 years using a hybrid of rental income and 4% rule on stocks. We will probably work part-time at first. I love it. So you're working and investing the 4% rule and real estate. It's entirely possible to invest in them and do it. What's going to be the challenge is if you invest in stocks. Like I'm not a stock guy, and I've almost always said I've never owned any stocks, but in 2025, Tesla went on sale, and I put 1% of my net worth into Tesla, and it's basically doubled in price. It's 30,000 to like 52,000 now, so it's almost doubled. It'll probably double by the time a year passes and I sell it for capital gains because I'm not a stock guy. I just represented that protests weren't going to last. Price came down, so I bought when it was on sale. That doesn't mean it can't drop to zero, right? Let's hypothetical on how Tesla drops to zero because I'm not a stock guy. AI and SpaceX were just combined. So one of their valuations went up, and it's over $1 trillion in valuation combined. So let's say Elon, as smart as he is, goes, oh, let's put Tesla in there. Now the three of them together are worth $2 trillion. And then the AI bubble pops, and the AI whatever goes to zero. Tesla goes back down. And so if I had a bunch of money, I just tied it up into Tesla, I could lose all my money. So I'm not a stock guy. Dollar cost averaging into a well-diversified index portfolio, I could totally be on board with that if I had the time for it to go. But what I really like about your statement is you said, we're planning to fire in 8 years. It's the people who go, oh, I want to start now. How can I do it in 3? Like you did it. How can I do it faster? That's not how it works. It's a 10-year journey. Sounds like you're already a little bit into it. Learn how to save, work on your credit score. If you incorporate rentals and you compounded it with maybe house hacking or live and flip or something where you generate a bunch of money or reduce your expenses, then investing in stocks becomes easier. So I would avoid any of the 20 ways to invest in stocks and the 20 ways to invest in real estate. Find one. For me, stocks would be dollar cost averaging, diversified index. For real estate, it's long-term buy and hold from the MLS, minimal amount of work required. Like pretty simple. No flipping, no wholesaling, no BRRRR, no rehabs, no off market, no driving for dollars, no mailers. Like all, you can absolutely confuse yourself with all the ways you can invest in real estate and the ways you can invest in a stock. The simpler you make both, the less work you make both of them take, the more likely you are to follow through with both. So I don't think having 2 investing strategies is bad, but having 4 or 5, it's the whole if you chase 5 rabbits, you're going to starve mentality. But 2 sounds like if you're 5 years into real estate investing, it sounds like 8 years is totally doable. CCMR, I figured out that one member's video was in videos. The rest are in live. Thank you. Yeah, I put one members only video in the regular because I got everyone's approval in the video to put them on because we're all on Zoom together. And I just put people out there. This is what we do in the members video. So if you want to see those, you got to be a member, and we do these twice a month. There'll be one this Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Howdy from Reno. Andrew, tell us how you really feel about Ryan. I went to a live event with him where he was a giant raging douchebag, and he pissed off the entire audience within 5 minutes. That doesn't mean he's a giant raging douchebag. It means he was that day in that moment that. It's kind of like when you tell your kids, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. You're not an idiot. What you did was idiotic. He's a flipper, right? He's an active income person that makes way more money than I probably ever will. Congratulations. If you want to be a flipper, probably puts out great information, probably has a great course. He is not a buy and hold investor in real estate, so he shouldn't talk about it. So that's how I really feel. I shouldn't talk about flipping, like even the concept of it. Arlen, how long do you give prospective tenants to give deposits to hold if you don't have anyone else interested in the unit? How long do you give? That's a good question. Let me think this through, because I don't think I've ever gone more than a month because demand is really high. Yeah, I've never gone more than a month. If I had zero demand or the tenant was really perfect for what I wanted or offered more rent or whatever, I don't know. There might be something that could draw me into it. But one of the other things we do in the members only is we study our rental listings. And when I used to do listings before I met Matt, the lumberjack landlord, I was doing it wrong. I was listing rentals like an owner. Age of building, square footage, school district. Here's a picture of the front. Here's a big paragraph describing what you can get if you live here. None of that matters. All of that drives tenants away. We go over. Tenants don't care about square footage, age of building, the school district, at least not where I rent, right? Because I don't want families. I'll rent to them, but I don't want them. What do tenants care about? Washer, dryer hookups, off-street parking. Will my pets be comfortable there? Is there a fence charge so they'll be safe? And then go into AI and say, here's the address of my rental. What are 5 things that tenants might be interested in that are within 2 miles? And you'll find out about pet farms and parks and museums and stuff you didn't know that existed around the place where you live. Bullet point those out in your listing. And all of a sudden I went from 10 to 15 interested with like 3 applications within 2 days to 30 plus interested with 10 applications within 2 days. So now the problem wasn't choosing or finding a tenant. It was choosing a tenant. And so the who will give a deposit, it was the first available date that it was rented. I wouldn't hold it for anybody really other than maybe a few days. But I have rented earlier and done proration of the earlier month to give them time to move from their place to the new one. It's who pays the deposit first gets the place. Yeah. So learning how to list the properties, but that's in my market, right? You could be in a market where it's just really slow and there's not a lot of demand. Or houses cost $20,000. So maybe people that have a good enough credit score just go buy a house. Yes, there are markets where houses cost $20,000. Gary, Indiana had a program where if you bought one, you got one free. So just because it's expensive where people want to live doesn't mean housing is expensive. I've done videos on housing that's cheaper today than it was in 2000, and I can prove it. Alan, if you are comfortable, can you ever do a video on your strategy for how you want your agent to negotiate on your behalf? Would you love to understand your perspective? I should probably have him on. And one of the reasons why is because I can negotiate more than the agent can. The agent isn't allowed in some markets to send part of the inspection report to the seller, isn't allowed to, like they have these rules and limits. But I can't because I'm not an agent. I'm just a dumb buyer. I can send parts of the inspection report directly to the seller if I can get their contact info. So the negotiation is finding the communication channel. They can also make me the bad guy, right? Let's say, hypothetically, there's a fourplex for sale for $1 million. It's been on the market a while now for $900,000 because that's the number that it makes sense at. And they counter with $950,000. That's kind of cutting it in the middle, never split the difference. They think I offered $9 because I wanted $950,000. And I'm like, no, it made sense at 9. So my agent can go back to them and go, yeah, I'm sorry. This buyer's a solid closer. He buys every deal he makes an offer on, but he never budges on price. He can make me the bad guy. Then they're not angry with the person they're negotiating, versus where in this case, I don't want to be the one communicating because I'm the one saying no. I said 900. That's what I'm going to offer. Hypothetically. But yeah, I should probably do a video with David on here and go, this is the agent that I use. Here's what he's done. And this is why I've used him. He has speakerphone called municipalities to check for permit issues, what the encroachment was, and checks for red flags, and contacted water treatment companies for my place that does have a well. Like, he's done all of these extra things that were, I've had other agents say that I wouldn't do that because they work with home buyers. And what does a home buyer do? Make an offer, buy a house, all the problems of the home buyers. I'm an investor. And if you want future business, the smoother the transaction goes for me, the more successful I am, the more likely I am to buy a property next year or the year after with the same agent. So yeah, that's a whole standalone video. Like it. What is the best way, from Ivan, to get qualified to buy primary residence with an S Corp, like getting the finances, salaries, K1, drawings, asking for my parents? Why would you want an S Corp? That'd be my question. It's going to make the financing worse. Can't own or occupy in most cases without committing mortgage fraud. Like, the S Corp is just a nightmare. It doesn't get you any tax benefits. It makes you more likely to get sued. Yeah. Even if you go with a DSCR loan, they usually don't want it to be owner occupied because they're going off of the rent to price ratio. Like, if your mortgage is 1,000, the rents have to be 1,100. They want a 1.1 ratio, and owner occupied usually takes that away. So the investors that I know, Zuber, the lumberjack landlord, so 180 units, 150 units, millennial my class count 27 units, probably more now. I have 18 units, 8 properties. My brother, 10 paid off properties. Not one of us has a property in an LLC or an S Corp. So if all of the successful investors that I know who are reaching financial freedom, or retired early off of their rentals, aren't doing it, now they've done flips, or they've done partnerships and they have LLCs, or they've used hard money and they've used it to do it, but none of them have their rentals long-term in a thing. There's a lot of negatives for your parents there, and it doesn't protect them from some other lawsuit. When they get sued, that S Corp is going to be just as much at risk as whatever they're being sued about. So when a detailed tax question comes in, I almost always say you should definitely check with a CPA. I am saying definitely check with a lawyer on the best way to set it up, because that could be state specific too. And it could do things like trigger rent control like it does in California. Covered in previous videos, offer to make sense and walk away if they don't accept. There we go. All-nighter hider. I'm going to be wrapping up here in a minute. I worded that exactly as intended. He's just working there, not a full-time resident. Okay, thanks. That does make more sense. All-nighter hider, probate. Yes, exactly. Not all trusts are the same. Yeah, because there's one trust structure where depreciation does reset, and there's one where it doesn't. Like, you have to know those things. Trustees manage the assets of the trust. The beneficiaries must meet KPIs to get the benefits, the comprehensive trust. And who do you know that's going to run the trust, right? It's not like you magically just automatically have people that'll do that, right? A lot of restrictions with the trust, even if it starts to fail. Nice. I think we'll be wrapping up here really soon. Read half the book, then listened on Audible while my wife read. Awesome job on both. Thank you. Much appreciated. That is Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, which you can find on Audible and Amazon and Kindle. Angry Capitalist, House Hacking, my second duplex. I can feel the snowfall effect already. The second house hack is amazing because you still have reduced cost of living and you get to rent out the unit you were in. Love it. Arlen, any tips to quit getting ripped off by my furnace companies? I rip furnaces out. Now, I live in the Pacific Northwest where furnaces aren't absolutely required. If you live in Siberia or New Hampshire or somewhere like that where you die if you get locked out of your house in the winter, maybe it's required. I rip out HVAC, I rip out furnaces. I put in cadet heaters or baseboard. That works fine in my area. So what's normal for your area? Can you shop rates? Can you find different people to work with? Can you let them know that you're buying rentals and you represent more future business than just the one they're working on? Nick, howdy. Get an umbrella policy instead of an LLC. Arlen, fix it yourself. You could do that. Some of it, maybe. I can rip it out myself. I ripped out gas at my newest one. Arlen, when you cashed out of your retirement account, you only ended up paying taxes on the income tax, right? I think the 10% withdrawal penalty was waived during COVID. It was. That was another one of the factors and motivators to do it, is they waived the penalties, but I just paid all of the taxes in a high income year. That was one of my years why I broke six figures. So yeah, I paid, 24% taxes. But that triplex makes me over $3,000 a month. It's made over $350,000, maybe $400,000 in appreciation. I've experienced principal pay down for 5 years. That retirement account has lost money. So, yeesh. Marlon, okay, a little more trust talk. My dad wants me to put his property in a trust before he dies. I do rentals and could rent his house and sell it for 1031. It's something. Trust, yes or no? Thanks. I can't tell you yes or no. There's so much to your situation. Why does he want the trust? If you're going to keep it, the trust could stop you from having a capital gains hit or a depreciation recapture, but the stepped up basis hits if it's not in a trust too. So you should inherit it without either of those issues if you sell it when you inherit it. If you keep it, those things stay the same, but you're planning on 1031ing anyway. What would the benefit of the trust be for you other than more paperwork and an annual expense and more money to file on it? Maybe they want to put some rules. If I die, you can't sell for 10 years. Or if I die, your spouse can't own this because I don't like who you married. Whatever their reasoning is, they can put that in the trust. They can put that in the will. It's hard to stand to it in the will. But yeah, I'm not doing a trust. I don't think my brother should have done a trust. I think Matt the Lumberjack landlord should do a trust. You're educated on this. Trust can't hurt you. So if it's what he wants, I'd probably do it. Bait stations placed every 10 to 15 feet. In some states, you can buy it yourself for termite control. There you go. Yeah. Caulking done wrong is better than no caulking at all. Maybe it could direct the water. This is what happened at the one place where I did the rehab. There was caulking that directed the water into the top of a window. So the wet termites were all below the window. So no caulking probably would have been just as bad, or maybe even worse, but yeah. Nicole, I'm in Utah. Let me know what you might need. So some information on not too cold winters, not too deserty. That was the thing that was going to stop Utah, because Utah was best property taxes, no income tax, right state, a red state, same thing. Yeah. I like water. So lakes or rivers, because I guess it's not coastal. Yeah, not a city guy, so it's going to be acreage, going to be animals, right? Going to have miniature mules to keep my cows company. Yeah. SK Realty, do you buy properties with unpermitted units? I do not. I have. It's been part of the problem, and it wasn't a whole unit. It was one room. I'll wrap this up unless I see other questions that I need to get to, because somebody's going to kill me if we don't go to breakfast soon. I bought a property and had zero permit issues. Contacted the permit office on speakerphone, found out about an encroachment and verified no permit issues. Went to the permit office, got a permit to remove a dead tree. Got talked to about permits to put on siding, told if it was under 1,000 square feet, I don't need a permit. So I did the bottom half of the duplex. And then I did the top half of the duplex. Both of those were under 1,000 square feet. They said, that's smart. That works fine. And then I put up a Marine Corps flag. Desert Storm veteran, a little bit of pride, put up the Marine Corps flag. Some moron, literal septum pierced blue hair person, thinks it's a Trump flag, digs into the permits from 8 years before I purchased the property and saw that there was some room addition change, a little bit of square footage from before I owned it, comes and hits us with that full force, like we're in violation, blah, blah, blah. 10-month argument, fighting back and forth. $5,000 to a report to they said, we want a wind shear study. We want a geo study. Now this room is underneath an already existing room. So wind shear is not needed. Geo's not needed. Plans, something, open it up for inspections of disturb the tenant. A couple of other things, like 10-month nightmare. The report from the agency that has done over 400 other things in the same county. Says we have never once been asked for a wind shear study or geo study underneath the pre-existing room. So this is a bullshit. This is their verbiage in an official report submitted to the city from a licensed contractor engineer, which is a geo and structural engineer, said this is retaliatory, ridiculous. First, passes wind shear. Second, passes geo. Third, you don't need plans because it was less than 10% change to pre-existing. Basically tore the city apart. City sent back a thing saying, okay, I guess you're right. Yeah. Unpermitted has massive risk. An example, let's say the entire unit was unpermitted. Then your tenant finds out. So it's not just one of the rooms, but it's the whole thing. And your tenant finds out. You could have to remunerate them for every penny of rent you have ever collected while they live there. If they've been there 3 or 4 years, you ready to do that? No, so not my thing. I would probably do it if I knew I could get the permit passed. Zuber did it once and had to just scrape the whole lot and take a whole ADU off. What did Arlen ask that I missed? Oh, about that thing. Yeah, find who the landlord is. Yep. Do my rental properties have to be listed in my umbrella policy? For them to be covered, mine were required to be listed in there, and they had a limit. Some of them will only limit you to 4. Some of them require, if you own them, they have to be with them up to 10. So, Brian, yes. Yep. They need to be listed. Thank you all for hanging out with me on a Tuesday. We will be back next Tuesday. No, we will not be back next Tuesday. Sucks for anybody who just found my channel. Every previous 2 hours is on here. I've only taken down the political one. But next Tuesday, I'm on an airplane flying to Vegas for the One Rental at a Time event at the Center for the Blind. There are still some tickets available. You go to, I think it's Eventbrite, you look up One Rental at a Time. It's 2 days. You get Jason Hartman as a keynote, Pace Morby as a keynote, the REI Avengers, Michael Zuber, Millennial Mike, the Lumberjack Landlord, and me. We're closing out second day. You get Cody Davis. You get a bunch of people with newer strategies that are presenting. And we do the 2 Midnight Denny's meetups in Las Vegas. I hope everybody has a week full of amazing. If you're in the members group, which you can just join here on YouTube, I put a like $2.99 a fee per month to keep out the bots and scammers because we all jump on Zoom together. There will be a call Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Ciao.